I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the June 2nd, 2026 business meeting of your Ashland City Council. Councilor Kaplan will offer the land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge and honor the Aboriginal people on whose ancestral homelands we work, the Ikirikupsan Band of the Shasta Nation, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. We honor the first stewards in the Rogue Valley and the lands we love and depend on, tribes with ancestral lands in and surrounding the geography of the Ashland watershed, include the original past, present, and future indigenous inhabitants of the Shasta, Takelma, and Athabascan people. We also recognize and acknowledge the Shasta village of Quakaka, where the crow lights, that is now the Ashland City Plaza.
Thank you. And Councilor Dale will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill?
Here.
Dale?
Here.
Bloom?
Here.
Graham?
Here.
Kaplan?
Here.
Hanson?
Here.
Duquesne?
Here.
Great. Thank you. For Mayor's announcements, the first is that if you have come this evening and are hoping to speak to the council on any item on the agenda or public forum, please make sure that you fill out the speaker request form, which is on the wall to the back of the building here, to the back of the room. Make sure that it is in the tray by our city recorder's desk so that she can make sure that it gets up to us at the right time. We ask that you please make sure that you indicate if you are here to speak to us on a specific agenda item. If you've come to talk to the council this evening about something that is not on the agenda, please make sure that you indicate that you are here for public forum. That will help Alyssa bring me the papers at the right time and help us move our meeting forward nice and smoothly. We ask that you please have your speaker request forms into the tray to the recorder before the beginning of the agenda item in which you intend to speak. A couple of other announcements. The first is that you may have noticed that there were quite a few changes to our agendas last week in terms of last night's meeting and tonight's meeting. A few things happened. First, Councilor Duquesne, who's joining us today from Zoom, was not able to be here this evening in person, and our executive sessions require council members to be here in person. And so we decided to cancel that executive session so that we can have that discussion when Councilor Duquesne can attend. And also because there needed to be a little bit more information gathered for that particular topic. We also, the discussion that we had intended to have last night about the night lawn was also not able to be had last night. So we moved the conversation that had initially been on the agenda for tonight about the wildfire mitigation bond to last night's conversation. So if you came this evening having looked at that initial posting and are looking for that wildfire bond conversation, it happened last night, but the video is available online either. Is it already online, Alyssa? It's already available online, and please reach out to any of us if you have any questions about that conversation. And then finally, we added an executive session last night to discuss the annual review process. We had postponed that conversation earlier in the spring, but were able to get that handled last night while Councilor Duquesne was still available to be here in person. So just realize that some folks have asked me about some of that movement, and it's not typical, so I wanted to make sure everyone understood why that was happening. We also, a couple of other announcements. Juneteenth is coming up. It's coming up on June 20th. The base and his partners are going to be celebrating at Pear Blossom Park from 11 to 8 p.m. And I know that we're going to be talking a little bit more about the strategic plan and how you can make sure that you comment in there. But also just a reminder that we are now fully in wildfire season. And so please make sure that you're taking care of your home and your property, making sure that we're reducing our wildfire risk as much as possible. This evening, we have a proclamation for Flag Day. A proclamation in honor of Flag Day 2026. Whereas the first official flag of the United States was adopted on June 14th, 1777 by an act of Congress. And whereas on August 3rd, 1949, Congress designated National Flag Day, which was to be celebrated on June 14th of each year. And whereas the annual event is an opportunity to learn more about the history of the American flag and to honor and show respect for our veterans who have served our country with courage under this flag. And whereas the American flag has always stood for the aspirational goal that our nation will be a place where people of all backgrounds, creeds, and philosophies support and defend the Constitution as the bedrock of our democracy, and all people are guaranteed due process in a system dedicated to the rule of law. And whereas our nation is currently engaged in a vigorous society-wide debate about whether those values remain the values of our nation. Now, therefore, I, Tanya Graham, Mayor of the City of Ashland, Oregon, do hereby proclaim June 14th, 2026 as Flag Day in the City of Ashland and urge all residents to contemplate what they can do to ensure that our flag symbolizes our devotion to freedom, equal rights for all, and the rule of law here and abroad, and then to act peacefully on those contemplations. In Ashland, we are better together. Thank you. And also just a reminder, on June 14th, there will be a celebration on the plaza at noon hosted by the Elks, and hope to see you there. All right, that is it for mayor's announcements. We are to the approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, the floor is open for a motion to accept the minutes. Councilor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve minutes as in the packet for May 18th and May 19th.
Second?
Sorry, I sent out a corrected minute, so if we could change the motion to approve the corrected minutes that council received, and then those corrected minutes will be posted
Thank you,
online.
Alyssa. I was under the assumption that they got re-added in. I read your email, but didn't, okay. Correction. And that was remind me, was that the study session or the business meeting?
It was the business meeting.
Thank you.
So if you can withdraw
I'd like to
your last
retract
one.
my
Okay, great.
motion and give you a new one. I'd like to approve the study session minutes from May 18th and the minutes as corrected in email from Alyssa from a regular business meeting, May 19th.
Second.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sorry, my mic just went down. Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Approved.
Great. We are now to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove the single item from our consent agenda? The floor is open for a motion regarding the consent agenda. Councilor Dale?
Move to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Excuse me. Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you to Ashley Cropper for stepping forward to serve our community on this committee. We're very excited to welcome you to our Climate and Environmental Policy Advisory Committee. So thank you. We move now to special presentations. We have the Elks Building Mural presentation with John Pugh. Sabrina?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have John Pugh here to give an update on his mural that he is proposing. If you remember, this is where the Crow Lights mural that will be located at the 1910 Elks Lodge building. And so he has some slides prepared, I believe, and some visuals for you.
Great.
I'll let you take it from here.
I just press this when I'm,
It's
okay. Getting a couple pictures. Here's the sketch, updated sketch. I think last time, well, I'll show you in a minute. There's been quite an evolution since the an evolved statement about the piece too. And I think that we'll be able to get to something here in a second. It's not necessarily the first thing. I'll just put it this way. It's okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. It's not like the bailiff is going to come after me or something like that. So I wonder if I can go forward a little bit. So when I first presented to you, I think I had this sketch, and it was boy, this has really gone through quite an evolution. And I was thinking this energy of enchantment is what I was researching about, the source of enchantment, which I think all of us have experienced here in Ashland. And this kind of naively, hopefully I'll go to the next image here. Yeah, I was showing kind of this Maxfield Parish woman that's experiencing maybe a form of enchantment, but this is not a form of enchantment according to the native elders and people that I've befriended since journeying into this project more, and that the village would be more about a communal type thing, that a woman out in the woods like this by herself would probably mean that she's on her menstrual cycle. So I decided to evolve into this sketch now, which is, I wonder if I have there we go, a close-up of the sketch where we have this village, and it has this acorn woman. It's a very typical village scene where there's an elder sharing things about creation stories with the young, and someone gathering acorns. There's a guy in the back that's preparing salmon, all really important things. The camas is there. There's all other little evidence of things going on in the village, including all the important animals that are they considered equals, the members of the Dragonfly Nation, which, by the way, Grandma Aggie's name in Takelma means dragonfly, and is the creation story of Table Rock, for example. The Dahl brothers were dragonfly brothers. I'm not going to get into long-winded oral history, but and then there's a I'll show you more here too. To respect the different, where are the crow lights? That is specifically the village that I picked. Although I'm no longer saying Shasta or Takelma, I've been counseled by elders to really keep it more about indigeneity and not have any intertribal stepping on toes, so to speak. It's about sharing the wisdom of our ancestors here for 22,000 years with hopefully the town of Ashland and some of the beautiful aspects of how this way of respecting and coexisting with nature can reclaim nature in our environment as well as ourselves. And okay, so there's a lot of the crow lights. You can see they're glazing. There's actually a white deer that's in the piece in the center with the village. Notice that these are all in gray tones. This is the elk. This is Teddy the elk. I don't know if you know the story about Teddy the elk. You're nodding your head, so I assume you do. Quite a dynamic Shakespearean story. And then here's one of the boys listening to the elder. They're all in gray tones, and now I'm going back to that. I'll share some color pictures in a second. This is the acorn woman. They're all either locals or indigenous people that I've got to know that are in this project. Actually, the woman who is portraying the acorn woman here is Colombian, Native American, but she also painted herself. She painted this of herself, and it will receive color glazing. One of the children helping her collect acorns. This is getting a little out of order here. This is a model that I've created because part of the process I'm really involved with right now is really bringing this tree to life. This is definitely out of order, but that's okay. Sasha's with me today. I have a group of artists that are with me that are working with me. Including Cynthia over here too, is a member of White Rabbit, has been involved with an AI component that goes along with this. Different subject, but important to this piece. And then, okay, so yeah, now you can see we're adding glazes. The yellow jacket was important to Shasta creation story about how Mount Shasta erupted, and I don't want to get into long-winded detail, but I want to represent Shasta caps, Takelma caps, some of the creation stories, but nothing specific that says this is a Shasta village, which it was originally, but it was shared with Takelma, and again, it's about indigeneity and healing and not necessarily about specific tribes. Here's some of the evolution, creating the tree in the studio. There's a rock to the left. The next picture, I've scrolled that down, and we're starting to put foliage in on this one. You have to excuse the order, it's not quite right, but that's okay. Working on the moss on the tree. Here's one of the rocks that are down in the lower part of the mural. Let's see, do we have more stuff? Okay, well, that kind of covers it, but I was trying to also get the The very beginning, that's right. Okay, so there's an example of, in this case, a pronghorn that looked like Teddy the gray tone, or that white deer the gray tone, or the people the gray tone. They all get colored glazes, and this is a way for me to bring them up in living color after the initial gray tone is put in place. So it's all part of the process. So they will be in color. And then, so to complete this too, I also wanted to share with you that I'm sure that the committee is interested. Well, can you tell us the names or notes or written literature or whatever by whoever approves this, or that kind of thing where you're getting evidence of the Native involvement with this? My experience is that they do not necessarily want to be recognized, that this is about storytelling and it's about trust issues. There's some horrible things that have happened in the past. Needless to say, it's gone from a movement by myself of extraction of truth to what turns out to be befriendment. And I've made friends with a lot of these people, David West, a lot of people that don't mind being mentioned that are involved with the university, a couple different chiefs, and it was Shasta, Nadine, Grandma Aggie's daughter. They don't mind me mentioning them at least. And Russell Beebe, the story pole guy downtown, and a couple others. But the one thing that I can share with you is that the sketch has been passed around at 2 powwows now. I've also brought it to a couple ceremonies and shared with a lot of these people, and I've adjusted as I've gone, and they love it. And in fact, the one comment that I really want to share with you is that with many of them, they said, I look at this and I feel like I'm home. And that really almost brought me to tears, because I feel honored to be a vessel to bring this type of wisdom to downtown and to celebrate that such a long shift of non-social media wisdom that's been collected for so long about living with the land here to finally be brought back, more than just a land acknowledgement at a play, but there will be a portal and more of a story being told here where the natives will have voices. And one more thing too, I just want to share that our goal of raising $250,000, we're about $205,000, we're about $45,000 short of that, which I hope I can, have that gap be closed before I actually start putting this up on the wall, which is slated to happen at the end of July. So that's it for me. I'm sure you have maybe some questions. Did I take too long?
No, you're right on time. You actually, you're only at 8 minutes of your 10 minutes, so we have a little bit more time for questions even.
Oh, okay. Good.
Great, so questions. Councilor Hanson.
Thank you, John. This is awesome. I got chills. This is really special. So fill me in on the process again. It looks as though you're building it in your studio and then you bring it out.
Correct.
We're not going to see you like July, August, September, painting up on the wall.
There'll be some painting on the wall too. I can only fit so much of this wall in my studio, and I do have a big scrolling system, but the core of this is being painted in my studio on a special acrylic canvas that will later be applied to the wall with acrylic gel permanently. And it's a great way for me to do things all across, all around the world actually, this way where I could bring it, but here it's just across town. But there will be a lot of things happening on location, like the windows to the right and left, placement of the people and the animals will happen after the main mural thing has been installed. But there'll definitely be a process on location that will probably take a month, and hopefully we'll create a buzz.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
We're blessed.
Well, I feel blessed. Really, this is great.
Yes. Councilor Bloom?
Yeah, just a comment. It's very, very beautiful, and thank you for bringing this to our community. Much appreciated. That's all.
Thank you. Thanks.
Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks, John. I want to echo that. Thanks for bringing it to our community, and thanks for all the care that you've taken to really be inclusive and getting the story so that it accurately, is respectful of the of the people who have lived here for so many years. That was one of the things that we had asked you to do when you came to us. Was it 2 years ago? Or was
Yeah,
it 3 years?
2.5.
2.5. It was a long time ago. So and I've been following your progress, obviously, as you've gone forward. So I really appreciate the care that you've taken, and I think it's going to be just a fabulous knock your socks off kind of adornment for people, coming down Main Street and just seeing this incredible, massive, mural that really is attention-getting, as your other murals are, wherever they are in Raleigh, North Carolina, and lots of different places. So thank you so much for doing this, and I'm looking forward to seeing you up there on a
me too.
hot
Yeah.
early August day, just kind of putting it up.
Yeah, thank you. And to add to that too, there's a lot of the elders that I have become friends with that are also very much looking forward to seeing this in kind of a bookend section of downtown too. So there's the mounting enthusiasm about that. So, do all the town council meetings go this like glowingly?
No. All the time.
Yes.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you. John, yes, they do, and even better. So
That's a higher power.
I just wanted to thank you, and I've seen this progress, and actually Councilor Kaplan pretty much said what I wanted to say, because early on I know there were concerns about adhering to our indigenous neighbors and our families and making sure that we paid respect, and you did your due diligence. The Public Arts Committee is so happy to support you and everything you've done. I remember when you did it the first time, and then you went back and I was at your studio and you had, okay, this is what it's really gonna look like. Everybody was blown away. So I just wanna thank you and echo the enthusiasm of the Public Arts Committee. And I look forward to the unveiling, ribbon cutting, whatever's going to go around this. I'm just very grateful for your gift.
Dedication.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And can I add too that I want to also thank the Public Art Commission and Cynthia, and there's so many people and artists that have been, Maddie, there's all these people that have contributed so much, because this is really a grassroots thing. It came from the Elks. I want to thank the Elks. They paid for a sketch. So there's so many people that have been part of this. And it's what a way to get to know the community. I've been here for 5.5 years, and I feel like I've sunk my roots in really deep, really quickly. So it's really appreciated.
Councillor Dale?
Yeah, John, I just want to say thank you again. I'm just very heartfelt thank you. I'm just so looking forward to seeing this. It looks amazing here, and looking forward to seeing it life size, and already planning where we'll sit and contemplate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sherrill?
Thanks, Mayor. John, this is awesome. I can't wait to see it. I know you went really deep into everything you put on here, so I just have to ask, just could you quickly tell me about the shelter?
The shelter is a plank house, and it was very typical of this area at that time. There was a debate, intertribal debate, about should it be a round door or a square door, and there was a lot of, so I mean, I've had to go back and forth with the native population to figure out what it is exactly, and the option was it shouldn't be facing out toward us anyway, so the door is actually where we can't see it now. And so that was the solution for that. But it is a plank house, and it's very atypical of this area, and also down the Klamath, like the Yurok and so forth, that we're using this type of structure.
Awesome. I just really appreciate the attention to detail, and thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hansen?
John, could you zoom out so the public and the rest of us can see it? I'm looking at your
Let's see if I
your
can-
poster board here, but let's see it. Yeah.
There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. Oh, and I did want to, can I mention one more thing? Or is,
Yes.
Okay. That at the very top, you can see that there is, whoops, go back.
That trick to the eye is fabulous.
At the very top of this, you can see, oops, I almost had that. Stay there.
You put a
can see
skylight in the
wrinkles
Elks
on
building.
top. That you go, how are those wrinkles on the top? And I did want to share that with a little bit of architectural foam, it doesn't come out from the wall, but it's added to the top, non-weight bearing, there's fiberglass over and everything, it's safe and everything. But it just breaks that picture plane a little bit, still flat, but breaks the picture plane a little bit to allow for this kind of messing with the, further with the viewer to make it feel like it's draped over the building. It's not just the wall. So I just wanted to share this, add a little thing there.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, I feel like we could keep asking questions because there is so much detail. The top left, there looks like a person looking out the window.
Correct. And that has not been designated yet.
Okay. I'm just curious, what are we looking at there?
Well, it's the first idea was there's an accountant up at the top of the Elks Lodge, and he's, what's going on here? And he looks out, and Maddie's come to life, or Teddy's come to life out there with and then the wall is turning into a curtain, and he's going, what? So it's just kind of a fun local reality, local time thing. And then if you look over to the far right, there's a clock that's striking 11, which is important to the Elks too, about remembering people from the past.
Okay.
So.
Great, thank you.
Great. So, John, I remember when you came and we had that initial conversation, and it's just incredible. I've been coming to your studio for First Fridays and watching the evolution and just learning more about this process that you've taken to so many places around the world. And I understand that this is the first time you have done a mural like this that hasn't been commissioned, where the community has had to rally, and you've had to fundraise with your team, and so to me this is also something about being home in this community, and that gift to this community is just, it's profound. And I go by when we had the Christmas holiday or the holiday season last year, and I saw, the reindeer have been up on the Elks side for as long as I've lived here, and I thought, where are they going to put the reindeer? We'll have to ask the Elks, where are they going to show up around town? But just seeing that and recognizing that by the time we were going to get to the next year's holiday festival, that we were going to have this incredible piece of art on that wall. And every time I've driven past it since the last visit to your studio, I've just been picturing it coming to us this summer, and that's just so incredible. So I wanted to thank you, recognize the different nature of this particular project, and ask you a question. My question is, where can people donate to help finish up this project?
Okay, that's a good question. I don't have the QR code with me, but I don't know if Cynthia does. But there is a website called wherethecrowlights.org, and there's a place to donate there. So
wherethecrowlights.org is where the community can make contributions to help bring this across the line.
Yes, please. Thank you. That's great. Thank you for bringing that up.
Great. Well, thank you so much. If there are no additional questions, I would just say we are so grateful, and we are so looking forward to this coming up, and looking forward also to the celebration and the unveiling whenever that is going to happen. So I know the whole community is looking forward to coming out and celebrating.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can I just close this? Or?
Close it? Yeah, she'll deal with it. Yeah, we should. You want to grab it? Okay, thank you.
So just go ahead and. Oh.
Okay, we are to public forum. We have 7 people who have signed up to speak with us this evening. The way that this works is that you'll come up to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes each. I will let you know the order that people will be speaking. You can feel free to line up along that wall if that's helpful for you. Please pay attention to the light display that is on the podium. When you get to 20 seconds left, you'll hear a buzzer. A nice gentle buzzer, I think, but a buzzer, and that'll tell you that you have 20 seconds left. You'll also have this clock will give you that indication. When you hear that second buzzer, that means that your time is done, and we just ask that you finish the sentence you're on so that the next person can come and speak to the council. If you have any mobility issues and you need us to bring a microphone to you, please just raise your hand when it's your turn to speak, and we will make sure that you're able to have a microphone brought to you. So this is the order. We will go in. The first speaker is Paul Mosina, followed by Suzanne Haveman, Lori Hoagland, and Barbara Cooper.
Mayor, I'm sorry, how many minutes per
2
speaker?
minutes each.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Mosina. I live in Ashland. And you might recall a year ago, you approved the 2025-2027 budget. You adopted the budget. And you adopted it with changes in it that were made at a study session 2 weeks prior on May 19th. And I remembered in that study session that Councilor Bloom recused himself. And I was like, oh, why did he recuse himself? So I went back to listen to the video, and that part of the video where Councilor Bloom was taken into the back room by the city administrator was scrubbed from the video. The time when Councilor Bloom was taken into the back room was scrubbed from the video, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm mistaken. So I went to the end of the discussion about the funding for the child care grant program, and the mayor went around the room as she does and asked people to answer the question. It wasn't a vote. It was merely to answer the question whether the council should recommend these changes to the city administrator. And Councilor Bloom just kind of nodded at the mayor, and the mayor said, oh yeah, you're not participating. So Councilor Bloom had a conflict of interest that prevented him from participating in the discussion on May 19th when you amended the budget. And then on June 3rd, you voted on that budget as amended, and you never voted on those amendments. And that violated the Oregon revised statutes, and the Department of Revenue reprimanded the city for amending the budget before the public hearing. It was not permitted to do that. So by this sleight of hand, Councilor Bloom was able to vote on the adoption of the budget without any vote on the amendments that were made to that budget, in which he had a conflict of interest. I think that's significant, and I hope that you will pay attention to that.
Thank you. And just a reminder, please tell us your name and the city in which you reside at the beginning of your testimony, and feel free to adjust the microphone. Yes, thank you.
Good evening, members of City Council. My name is Suzanne Havman. I've been a resident of Ashland since 1970-something. I spent most of my time in Ashland as a nurse at Ashland Community Hospital. I love our Ashland. I love our hospital, and the medical community that we've had over the years have been stellar. I'm very, very proud of our medical community. As you know, we are in crisis, and I have been here and others have been here in behalf of the hospital. And the good news is we're here to stay. We are going to remain here until we have our Ashland Community Hospital back in some form that will be financially stable and serve the residents of Ashland and the surrounding community. I would ask that you take that to heart, that it's not something that is going to go away, and we need your help, we need your commitment to support anything we can do to get that hospital back. So I thank you for your efforts, and I will see you time and time again, and we're going to be working on this until we get our hospital back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Lori Hoagland, Barbara Cooper, Lita Shapiro, and Sharon Bryson.
Hi, I'm Lori Hoagland. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I live in the city of Ashland. I wanted to thank the City Council tonight and the City Attorney for your part in holding Asante accountable and securing the $4 million penalty fee for breaking their 2013 agreement with our city to provide health hospital services. It was a relief to hear that the money will be coming shortly. As a nonprofit, Asante has received tax benefits from our community in exchange for providing a public good. They made a commitment and unilaterally broke it after deciding our payer mix of OHP and Medicare patients was a liability for their bottom line. We all know healthcare in America is in crisis, and this is affecting our community with every other community. As of this month, we no longer have birthing or inpatient services in our community. The Save Our Ashland Community Hospital Coalition refuses to let that be the end of our story. We are having conversations with residents about this crisis, and I can tell you that they are overwhelmingly in support of having hospital services in Ashland. As stewards of our city, we ask that you protect this penalty money to be used for healthcare while we figure out how to bring hospital services back to Ashland. It is not the first time we have been at a precipice regarding our community hospital. We have salvaged this service before and can do it again. There's no reason in 2026, with all our modern medical advancements, that the richest country in the world ignore its most vulnerable residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barbara Cooper. I've been in Ashland since 1980. And and I worked at Ashland Hospital from 84 till for about a decade, went up to Portland to finish my degree, came back and worked for Asante, which is Rogue Valley Medical Center at the time, and spent 23 years there. There's a spirit about this hospital that is still retained in this community from people that have been longtime people or people that have just been here recently. And when I've been out gathering some signatures and just talking to people, everybody has a story. Everybody has something positive to say. People are afraid of what's going to happen when things continue to get removed from our town. And I just wanted to share that emotional part, because when everybody has a story about like their children were born here. And I was doing this one lady, and she was signing, and her little girl wanted to know why she was signing, and she says, "Because you were born here." And the lady over here that was approaching said, "I was born here, and my children were born here." And so we're getting so much, emotional things and stories. We only have one birth in our lives, and we only have one death. And people were sharing many stories about these things and how this and this, how much it meant to them. Some of the people that are, more senior, in the seniors, they were more afraid. They're very afraid about having the hospital so far away. And some people even moved here for that reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lita Shapiro, followed by Sharon Bryson and John Maurer.
Lita Shapiro, I'm a resident of Ashland. Last year, when salary increases were approved in August of 2025, we were told how important it is to retain experienced staff. This was one of the reasons given for the raises, to retain staff. I concur, it's important. So the question that must be asked is, when the financial director resigned, why was there not an immediate search for a new experienced finance director? Marion Berry resigned in July of 2025. Here it is, June of 2026, almost a year since her resignation, and there has not even been a hint of a search for a replacement. This raises the question, why has this not happened? Is the city more concerned with saving the money for the position than hiring someone qualified to plan for the necessary budget resolution and point us toward a sustainable path? It seems to me this would be a top priority. Almost a year and no effort has been made for a new finance director. I believe it is council's responsibility to direct an immediate, wide search for a replacement for this extremely important executive position, especially in the light of our dire finance position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon Bryson. I live in Ashland. I'm here this evening to kind of introduce tomorrow's joint session. And I want to, first off, I want to let you all know that there's announcement for spray tomorrow on Fiscal and on Ashland Street. And I felt compelled to go down to Ashland Street and check it out myself, which I've done before, and I found that there were no weeds. So I'm really curious. There were no weeds, I'll take that back. There were no weeds in the section across from the credit union, but going on down, across from the Metaphysical Library, there was a patch about as big as that table area there. I went home, I got my holy hoe, I cleaned it up in 10 minutes, and it's no more effort than pushing a broom. But my main thing is, I just want to address some of the information that you're going to read tomorrow, because there's a few holes in it that I can prove with paperwork. The one thing, it talks about glyphosate and this other poison, but there's another really serious poison that's in these records. I don't know how to say it, but it's nasty stuff. Down here in the part where it talks about labor reductions, it's very important to understand from the previous park, from the previous park director as well as from the operations, the park's operations, that they never track how many hours anybody is done on any specific task. So when they talk about this reduction from 40 to 16, there's no data to back that. Anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
John Maurer.
Thank you, Mayor, and all you hardworking counselors. I'm John Maurer, 50 years, surgeon, physician here in Ashland. I'm accompanied tonight by grandson Parker, who's visiting from Pennsylvania, wants to see how rural America governs himself. And that smile on his face is a bit of pride, because we came by Phillips Field, where his mother's name for 31st year is, the high jump champ for Ashland High School. So that's Parker. I'm here tonight because at the next council meeting, you will have already deposited $4 million that rightfully comes to you. I'm well aware of the needs of this city. I'm totally into having been here for these last 6 months on a regular basis, knowing all the holes in the budget. However, that $4 million, I want you to remember, is the product of many generations for the last 125 years of Ashlanders that have provided this city not only with a hospital with access to care that no longer is here. We want that $4 million to stay in a reserve fund for at least a year while we follow the plan that I will outline. We have at our disposal, and we're hard on the track of developing a new hospital. It'll be located a little bit south of town that'll qualify for critical access. That determination allows us to do business on a cost-plus basis, all right? It's going to give us a solvent healthcare delivery system in perpetuity. I want you to remember that. We need a little time, so I'm asking for at least a year to get this done. Keep that $4 million for us. Additionally, we're going to go to the Department of Revenue and indeed have a health district here in Ashland to shorten up any weak spots that we may have in the budget, because going forward, healthcare is a disaster that we don't know what it's going to look like. So we'll have access via taxation for a little bit to keep us going. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And welcome, Parker. It's great to see young faces in our chamber. We move on now to public hearing. A public hearing for approval of a resolution to levy taxes for the fiscal year July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. A resolution certifying City of Ashland services. A resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues. Sabrina?
Thank you. So we do this once a year to receive our property tax as well as our state revenue. So you have several resolutions here tonight. I will let Bren walk you through the three that we have, and we can answer any questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
The first resolution is to approve the property tax levy. This, as Sabrina mentioned, this is required each year, even though we do appropriate on a 2-year budget. And that is for the amount of $4.2865 per thousand of assessed value, as well as the general obligation bond debt amount of $202,774, which is for the repayment of Fire Station 2 debt.
Can you hold on just a moment? If someone could shut that door, please. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
And the other two resolutions tied together, they certify that we provide services to the state that qualify us for state revenue sharing and that we are electing to receive it. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay. The floor is open for a motion. I'm opening the public hearing. Alyssa, has anyone signed up to speak to us tonight on this issue?
No.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing. The floor is open for a motion. Councilor Bloom.
Okay, here we go. I move to approve a resolution levying taxes for the fiscal year July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. Such taxes in the levy rate of 4.2865 per 1,000 of assessed value upon all the real and personal property subject to assessment and levy within the corporate limits of the City of Ashland, Jackson County, Oregon, and the City Council also levies a tax for the repayment of general obligation debt in the amount of $202,774. I didn't say that right, $202,774. And I move to approve a resolution certifying City of Ashland services, and I move to approve a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenues.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Bloom.
I would like the state to give us some money.
Councilor Dale.
That's why I seconded.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bryn, will you turn that one on? Sometimes that.
Thank you. Hanson,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryn. We are now to ordinances, resolutions, and contracts. We have second reading of the following ordinance language changes, set number 3. Sabrina.
So we're here tonight for a second reading for several ordinances. I'm going to let Johan go ahead and walk us through those.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm going to do the first 3 independently because there were some minor changes and I just want to put those on the record. So the first is second reading of Ordinance 3299, an ordinance amending AMC 13.04, construction, repair, and alteration of sidewalks, Section 13.04.020, duty to repair and clear sidewalks. In that, there was a typo, scrivener's error. It was AMNC, and we changed it back to AMC. But that is the only change.
Okay. And I know in the past, sometimes with second readings, we have combined them.
Right, and I can do that or I can read them all if you want.
So I think we need to read all of the titles.
Yep.
But then also, Council, is there any reason why we might not consider these all at the same time? What, Brittany?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, for the motion, since it is a second reading, you're going to read it out. Can the motion be just not reading the whole title, but just the number?
Yeah.
Ordinance
and then we'll do
3299.
with the 3
ordinance.
as amended.
Great.
3 as amended, okay.
So the second one will be, I have to read all the titles though, lucky me. So the second will be Ordinance 3300, an ordinance amending AMC Section 14.04.060, water connects outside the city limits. There was another, actually there were no errors in that one, but I just wanted to highlight for council that per their request on the template, the quotation consent to the annexation is now going to be linked to the irrevocable consent to annexation template on the city website. And then under section F, the phrase preventing the partitioning or subdivision of land prior to annexation to the city is now linked to that same template. That was a request or was mentioned. So it's all going to be linked up there. But no changes other than that.
Any questions on that ordinance? Councilor Dale.
Actually, just a general question, Johan. Just want to make clear that the scrivener's errors and the minor adjustments do not entail having to read anything in full. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. So what we're doing is we're reading the change section in its
Perfect.
full by stating what the change is.
Just want to, thank you very much.
Councillor Sherrill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Johan. Just a quick follow-up question. Last time we talked about potentially embedding links with the clear and objective standard. That's not in the ordinance, but it's going to be in the, go ahead.
It's going to be on the website.
Okay.
The links to the ORSs and the, yeah.
With
Or
the
code.
with the related number.
With the code, yeah.
Copy, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So the next one is the second reading of 3301, an ordinance amending AMC 14.08 sewer system rates, section 14.08030, connection outside the city, inside urban growth boundaries, and section 14.08031, connection outside the urban growth boundary. There was a small edit. I added an apostrophe to directors. That was missing an apostrophe, but no changes other than that.
Okay. Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. Johan, I had a quick question. When I read the ordinance, when people, blah, 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 where was I? I can't find it. But if somebody, their property, they're connecting the sewer service to their property, that property owner pays for that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that I had it covered. Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, then we're, oh man, I lost my page. Then we're on to the second reading of, there's the three other ordinances there have been no changes to. 3302, 3302, an ordinance relating to wastewater regulations, amending AMC 14.09 to include section 14.09030 and 14.09040. Also second reading of 3303, an ordinance amending AMC 15.04, buildings and construction, section 15.04.210, demolition or relocation of structure. And then finally, ordinance 3304, an ordinance amending 15.28 fire prevention code. And there were no changes from first reading on any of those.
Okay. All right, so before we move on to a motion, I just want to clarify that, that there is no objection to moving these forward as a group. Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the following ordinances: 3299, 3300, 3301, 3302, and 3304.
Do you want to address the amendments or as amended?
The first three had the...
As amended. Sorry.
And 3303?
I'm not making them. Somebody else can.
Somebody, okay,
Yeah.
so that was intentional?
Yes.
Okay, so if everyone, does anyone have any questions about the motion? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Bloom?
Oh, to speak to it?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we some of us ad nauseum have gone over this, but council's already reviewed this, so ready to go.
Councillor Dale?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill? Yes. Dale?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Motion passed.
So we now have ordinance number 3303. The floor is open for a motion. Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve 3303, an ordinance amending AMC 15.04, buildings and construction, section 15.04.210, demolition or relocation of structure.
Is there a second? Councillor Hanson? Okay. Councillor Dale?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Hanson?
I'll second it.
Well, yeah, I think we had you on.
We had
as
a tie.
second. Okay.
I didn't know
did
where
you-
it landed.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, great housekeeping. Thank you, staff.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Councillor Bloom?
I just refer back to my comments at the last business meeting.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Bloom?
No.
Dale?
Yes.
Sherrill?
Yes.
Duquesne?
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Motion pass.
Thank you. We are now to Resolution 2026-12, ratifying the drought emergency declaration for the city of Ashland. Sabrina?
Thank you. So this evening you have a drought declaration before you. The emergency manager and I and the deputy city manager have met with the county, and they have a recommendation regarding declaring early when it comes to emergencies. And so given the fact that the governor as well as the county have declared a drought emergency, we are looking to declare that tonight. That does not mean that we have an emergency situation at this moment, but what it will do is allow for better coordination with the county and the state if we find ourselves in need of resources later on this season. And so for that reason, we are recommending doing this early so that we have this declaration in place and we are able to reach out to resources as soon as possible if we need them.
Great. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sabrina. Fully support this. Just wanted to ask kind of follow-up question just so that people understand a little bit more. Could you add to maybe a couple examples of how important this is and what this means for this office and the city and so forth?
Sure. So when we're looking at procuring emergency things, like in the case of a drought, if we need to truck in water, for example, and we're looking to potentially tap into resources that the county or the state has, we must have that declaration in place to be able to do that. And it's kind of a timestamp of when we've declared that emergency in terms of when we can start reaching out for those resources.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I have a question for Johan. Per the motion as written here, it just says move to approve the city manager's declaration of a state of emergency pursuant to AMC 2.62 emergency powers. Would it behoove us to maybe include language that it is reference to the drought and not anything else so that we're clear about that?
I think it couldn't hurt, although, I mean, if there's an emergency related to like a fire, you know, it'd be nice to have a state of emergency already going. But
I'm just concerned about a blanket state of emergency.
yeah, I think that's fine to drought.
Okay.
And I think a point of clarification, the resolution you're approving tonight is specific for drought conditions.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a quick question. And reading this, it says the city is facing an emergency need to allocate substantial funds. Where would these funds come from in this case of emergency?
So depending on what we're trying to address, we do have emergency funds and the reserve fund that we could tap in under emergency situations such as this.
Do you know how much emergency funds we have at this time?
I believe we have close to 1.8 million. I'd have to double check on that for you.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
So Sabrina, I've been in conversations with some of the other mayors across the valley about what each of our communities are doing. And of course, everyone has a slightly different water situation depending on where they're at. Is there anything that's coming from the county in terms of kind of unifying a unified campaign across the valley to address water issues? You know, because they've already declared a drought. I haven't seen anything, but I just wanted to see if that something like that might be in the works.
I haven't heard of anything. You know, we definitely have our own public information going. I can reach out to the county. I think their big focus is ensuring that our emergency management team understands the process with their emergency management team. They've been proactive this year in meeting with us early and letting us know the process. So I think up to this point that has been their concern regarding both drought and fire season.
So just quickly as a follow-up, so what we're really looking at, especially in the city of Ashland, is to flatten that curve, right? To not allow ourselves to get up to what we typically consume in the hottest part of the summer so that we can stretch out those resources as far as we can. I know there's a conversation already about the potential for a severe El Nino year, which could mean that the fall rains don't come like we expect them to. And so is that also a conversation that is part of these emergency conversations? Or can we bring that up? Because I think that changes the trajectory of what we're planning for. Typically when we're planning for drought, we're still expecting that end date in the middle of the fall. Is there something else that we should be doing in addition to or thinking about, and what would those thresholds be for taking additional action?
Yes, so staff is closely monitoring both the amount of water that we have, as well as kind of what we're seeing go through our system. And so we're seeing people watering heavier and more than we have typically at this time of year because it has been hotter and drier. And so this is why we've had a discussion early about curtailment, because we will probably see those kick in earlier than one would expect. We are also expecting both the drought conditions as well as fire season, to extend beyond what we would normally project. And so we are closely monitoring that and ready to kind of address that as we go along. And so I think, for the residents, this is time to be thoughtful about how you are maintaining your landscaping moving forward, and, how we're using water altogether.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be reporting out to the community on a regular basis about how those voluntary efforts are going, whether we're on target for what we think or whether we need people to keep working on that. I know with the rains last week, people were making comments, and I think it's important that we understand that those rains last week helped kind of hold off the initial push into summer, but doesn't in any way solve this drought issue.
It's always a bit odd to be drafting a drought declaration when it's raining, but I think the important thing to understand is the majority of our water resource comes from snow melt, and that is the significant impact, is that we have not had the snow accumulation that we would typically see. And so while rain is definitely welcome and wanted, it's not going to necessarily impact our water resource to the extent we would need.
And I think that's an important message, so thank you. We need to continue to reinforce that. Any other questions of staff? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 2026-12, a resolution ratifying the city manager's state of emergency declaration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilor Dale.
No, thank you. I appreciate it, Sabrina.
Councilor Bloom.
No.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. We are to unfinished business, wastewater and storm drain rate study acceptance. Sabrina?
So tonight we have Josiah as well as Director Fleury here to walk us through our wastewater and storm drain rate increases. So you may recall we've had a study session about this previously. The last time we raised our wastewater rates was in 2019, and our storm drain rates were increased in 2021. So these rates are both in alignment with a master plan financial analysis. So I'm going to hand it over to Scott and Josiah. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to quickly transition to Josiah and let him, hopefully he can share his screen and PowerPoint presentation that he has. Very structurally similar to what we presented in the study session a couple months ago, with kind of some final update and cleanup, and then the rate study cost of service report was part of your overall packet for review. So I'm just going to hand it off to Josiah, and I think as a common practice, what we've done before is if there's questions that come up along the way, just stop us and we will try to answer them as best as possible.
Great. Wonderful. Welcome, Josiah. Welcome
Thank
back.
you, Madam Mayor and Council. We'll get right into this. In general, the results are the same from our study session. A slight adjustment on the presentation, but in general, there was no technical changes. So we'll look at, again, what we consider when we go through the rate setting process, making sure that we are paying attention to generally accepted and industry standard methodologies. We'll look at the wastewater rate study and then the storm drain and talk about our next steps, which we've discussed a little bit already. So when we start out on a rate study, our overall goal is to maintain sufficient revenue for both utilities, in this case, wastewater and storm drain, looking at them independently as an enterprise fund. We want to make sure that the rates we're charging people are based on the cost to provide service, so the overall expenses of the utility, and then also based on how they impact the utility, so their usage, as well as for storm drain, some of their runoff estimation that we do through equivalent units. So all that to help us determine what's appropriate to charge them. We also want to incorporate prudent financial planning criteria. So pictured here on the left, we have the Water Environment Federation Manual of Practice number 27. And this is an industry manual which goes over how you conduct a rate study for wastewater systems. And we don't have a similar manual for stormwater or storm drain utilities. However, there are a lot of parallels between these systems, and so we utilize the same methodologies and structure when we look at a storm drain utility. The overall process that we use is, again, similar between the two utilities. We start with a revenue requirement analysis where we look at the overall expenses of each utility, and then we compare that to the current revenue generation, and we can then determine if there is a balance or deficiency of funds and project that into the future. And that gives us an idea of what rates need to do in order to cover those costs. The next analysis is the cost of service, where we take a test year from our revenue requirement, the first year of our rate setting period, and we'll start to develop the cost to provide service for each customer class. So dividing up our total revenue requirement between all of the customer classes that we serve. Then in the rate design, we look at the overall, the total amount of revenue we need to collect, and informed by the results of the cost of service, so how we need to collect that revenue for which customer class and at what level, based on their how they impact the system. And so we design rates then in the last analysis to accomplish both of those things, as well as any policy changes or adjustments that we may want to make. So starting out with the wastewater utility, we look at each customer and how they use the system, their specific, what type of customer they are, the billing based on winter water and total use for commercial, and we establish that revenue generation that we use within the study. So that independent calculation of the revenues helps us to make sure that that we're tracking with what the utility is actually seeing. And so we compare that then to our expenses, starting with the O&M from our adopted biennial budget for fiscal year 26 and 27. And then we project that forward based on inflationary factors tied to both historical trends that we've seen, as well as informed by what we anticipate into the future. And that gives us our projection of costs going out through 2036 in this case. One important aspect there is for both utilities, we are starting to make deposits to an equipment reserve. This will be specifically designed to help us pay for equipment expenses. And so for the wastewater utility, we're starting out at $100,000 in fiscal year 28. And you'll see in storm drain in a few slides that we're making that as well. And so that's just to help us contribute over time to some of those larger expenses, again, trying to mitigate the impact to rates in each year. The capital investment for wastewater, we have in the over the short term here, 26 through 31, we have some significant projects totaling approximately 18.8 million. And so that is a major component of the revenue requirement analysis. We're funding approximately 650,000 a year of that through rates. And so that's the capacity that we want to have within rates to pay for capital on an ongoing basis. We've also assumed some long-term borrowing, in this case for some larger projects, and this is a prudent approach as we want to make sure we're only issuing debt for projects that have a long-term duration, so things like the headworks at the treatment plant, where those assets will have a long service life, as well as the benefit of those assets will be felt for a long time. And so that debt service spreads out that cost to match up with the benefit. Here is a summary of that capital improvement plan for fiscal year 26 through 31. The very base of the bar chart there is our rate funded capital. Again, the cash funding from rates that we want to maintain. That's a prudent key metric that we want to keep, is that we're investing from the existing rates into our asset renewal and replacement. The reserves are being utilized up front in this study, and that's to help us again mitigate the risk or the impact to rates rather. And so we'll see that in a couple slides. We're utilizing some reserves that we have available above our targets, and again, to help pay for those capital projects. The wastewater treatment plant project, the headworks, as well as the Hardesty site in 28 and 9. And so the green area is related to those projects where we are assuming we need to issue long-term debt to help pay for those.
We have a question, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Josiah. Yeah, I was curious, how did you land on the $100,000 reserve amount? Was that tied to what we're seeing here in this plan, or could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that was in discussion early on with staff. I don't know, Scott, if we had, I know we had made prior deposits in that manner. And so we were trying to reinvigorate that effort. And so that was just a starting place that we felt like didn't impact rates too much, because obviously if we'd love to contribute more to that so that we can pay for more of those projects from cash that we have on hand. However, we tried to balance that with the debt service coming online, the drawdown of reserves, and then the overall rate impact. So that was kind of where we came to on that 100,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So once we've developed our capital funding plan, we then incorporate that into our overall cost for the wastewater utility, and that's pictured here in our summary. The dark gray box is our O&M expenses taken from the adopted budget, and so that's our materials and supplies, our staff costs, things like that. We also have our taxes that we have, and then our rate funded capital, the blue area, and then our net debt service. So we can see that box slightly increasing in the out years as that assumed debt comes online. And then short term, you can see reserve funding. Again, we're utilizing that to help us transition in a smooth way. And so in the out years, we're then replenishing those reserves. And so speaking of those reserves, this chart is just showing our strategy that we developed to use the reserves we have. The numbers up here are days of O&M. This is a pretty typical metric or basis that we'll use when we evaluate the level of reserves. And so the target that we have for cash flow is 90 days of O&M, and that's that dashed line that you see. And the blue shaded area is our operating fund. And so we're trying to make sure that we maintain that fund at that 90-day target. And you'll see then starting in 28, we have the deposits to our equipment reserve. And the goal there would be to build up those reserves. And then when things come up like the filters, for example, at the wastewater treatment plant, we can have some money available to help pay for those larger one-time capital projects that may not, or capital expenses rather, that may not be worthy for issuing debt.
Josiah, before you move on beyond this slide, when we look at the trajectory of the 90 days of O&M and we get over to fiscal year 2031, it's coming very close to the SDC fund. So how should we be thinking about that? at what point do we start having to look to that fund, or is that we simply pick? I know that we would by that point had done another rate study, but is there something we should be thinking about with those two lines converging on this graph?
Yeah, no, good question. And so we're typically, that's again why we're looking at the 10-year, is to make sure that after this, we're not losing sight of that trajectory. And so we do maintain that 90-day target. There is a lot of people that I work with that are asking then, is that 90-day target appropriate? Traditionally, what we established that 90 days based on was cash flow from, for example, a monthly billing, and then when that goes to the customer after they use services in 1 month, and then they'll pay that bill typically at the end of that month. And so there's 60 to 90 days of cash flow needs for just that type of expense. I've seen a lot of people looking at between a 90 and 180 day of cash flow, just because things such as volatility within utilities, and by that I mean either water, electric, fuel is a big one right now. And so it's really a risk tolerance type of question that we'll ask with regards to that specific reserve, because we do segregate the SDC funds based on Oregon law to make sure we don't use those. We're trying to use the equipment reserve as another risk mitigation technique to help us there. But yes, we are, by the end of this period, we're showing, and in the 10-year, we're showing we're really at that 90-day target.
Councilor Sherrill?
Thank you, Mayor. That brought up something for me. Can we go back one slide, Josiah? When I'm looking at the net debt service, like trying to figure out what a good reserve would be as per the cost of our debt. And I don't know all of our channels for going out for debt, but is that fixed rate or is it variable? Is that why it's growing? And how does that look? Like if we have a reserve that we can only make 4 or 5% on, but we're looking at potentially taking on debt for a capital project at 7 or 8%, that's going to maybe change how I see this graph. Can you give me some context, please?
Yeah, so the debt does increase our annual debt service payments based on the Hardesty site and the headworks debt that we're anticipating. So that's why that's increasing. Typically, when we're projecting this, though, it doesn't change. It will be flat year to year. And as far as terms, is that what you were asking?
The structure of the debt, like what kind of what kind of terms are we having, and how are we structuring that debt?
Yeah, so we're anticipating low interest loans for the headworks, and then the Hardesty site, because we haven't secured or we're not sure what that funding source would be as far as what type of long-term debt, we've assumed a revenue bond just to have a conservative buffer between, if it is a low interest loans, we'll realize some savings, but we just don't want to assume too low of terms on that.
Do we have an assumption we can place on it again, just to stack against what we know we can make on the investment side if we had potential of a reserve fund? Is it a couple percent? Is it 5%?
Or for the interest rate for the debt?
Yeah, what would you consider low interest rate debt?
So low interest rate we're assuming is 3%.
Okay.
And people are getting a little lower than that, but again,
Awesome.
trying to make sure it's conservative. Revenue bond, we're at 5%.
Okay, thank you.
And the interest kind of generally is 4 to 5% of what the city is making. As the council kind of recollects, you approved the North Mountain loan borrowing, and that was just over 3%. So we're working right now with DEQ through the state revolving fund loan for the Headworks project on a low interest loan, and there will be a resolution for that coming before the council here shortly as well.
Councilor Kaplan.
Yeah, thanks, Josiah. You answered part of the question about terms. You didn't talk about the tenor of the revenue bond. Particularly, I'm thinking, or the loan for the headworks, which are, as you said, are long-lived assets. What is the lifespan of headworks, and what sort of debt are you matching to that, or are you estimating in here?
So
yeah, we're using a 20-year. Scott, you can probably talk to useful life, I guess.
You know, I would say the useful life is on target for about a 50-year, with the debt through DEQ at about a 20-year term. And we're expecting somewhere in that 3%. I don't know the final until we submit all our budget information to DEQ and their loan department for them to run that to ground and bring it back to us. But it should be somewhere in that ballpark. As for the other funding source, that's something that we have to discuss and figure out, because that goes across multiple enterprise funds, you know, from a debt allocation. It's tied to storm and wastewater and the street fund as well for the Hardesty site development.
Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, I recall that Medford took a WIFIA loan for their wastewater debt, sewage treatment, or do I have that wrong?
I believe they did.
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
and that would have been a much longer term, right? That would have been more along the lines of our long-term debt for the water treatment plant, which is 35 years.
Yeah, 30 to 35 years from the EPA. But you're also talking about a $300+ million project.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so there's a relative scale to that as well.
Yep, gotcha. Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions on reserves? That was kind of my whole discussion there, but I didn't want to move on unless there was other.
Sure. Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, sorry, I did have a question about the reserves. I got distracted by Councilor Sherrill's question about the tenders. Got excited there. The reserve, so I take the point about the reserves, you know, for covering, you said normally 90 days of cash flow needs. This is the reserve balance. It's not a cash balance. And we saw, you know, last year where we had a difference between our reserve balance and our cash balance because there were some delinquent accounts. That also affected the wastewater fund, like it affected all our funds. It affected our wastewater fund much less than it affected the others because it's relatively small. Could you talk about that and how you're thinking about, because that is another risk, is ensuring that we've got enough of a buffer so that if there is a difference between the reserve, which includes receivables, until those receivables are actually received in cash, you know, they may not actually show up.
Yeah, so we, as part of the rate study, we do maintain a pretty conservative approach. So we don't add in any accounts receivable to it. We're looking at those actual received revenues essentially from the prior year. And we will look at, when we calculate revenues, we'll want to be within at least, you know, usually 0.5% of what you actually received from the same. So we'll match up the period that you have actual revenues from and the period that we're looking at the data for the customers. And so we didn't see a large delta there, which tells me that, yeah, there wasn't probably a lot of delinquent accounts. So we didn't make any adjustments for that within the rate study.
And we talked about this at the study session. You know, are we talking, as Josiah said, 90 days? Are we talking 180 days? Are we talking 360 days? And I think that's more of a policy discussion that's coming down the pipe financially as well. And, you know, from the enterprise utility, I would say 90 days is almost 0 days from a cash basis, you know, so looking at being a little bit more conservative in the cash management in the future, just because you could have a pretty significant one-time failure of something that would require, you know, a significant upfront cash basis to replace on a bigger utility like that.
One question around that. What is the impact if there is a severe economic downturn? I would imagine that that's when we would maybe see more delinquent accounts. How should we be approaching this? If 90 days seems to be right at the edge of where we would want to be, is that maybe the policy conversation that we need to have later? And what would it look like if we had a policy decision that said, actually, we want 120 days, but now we've got a rate study that's built on 90? What is the adjustment potential, since the policy discussion is going to come later?
I would just say if we look at the enterprise itself specifically, that's just a simple percentage calculation based on the difference of the two amounts, 120-day versus 90-day, and 0.5%, 0.25%, whatever that would be for the adjustment for the rates itself. For the policy, I think I'll let the city manager roll with that one.
So I think we will have a discussion about the reserve fund and that, what is the right amount of money to have in reserve versus actively utilizing for services. And, that's purely a policy decision around comfort of the body. And so I think, we can give some examples, and I think Scott's, 90 days is 0. And I think also, we can bring information to council regarding kind of the thresholds where FEMA gets involved, which is now much, much higher, potentially starting in 2028, I believe.
Right.
Where we're going to be in a different landscape in terms of being able to receive assistance.
And so if those changes happen, and that's part of the uncertainty that I'm thinking that we need to hedge against, if that happened, then what I'm hearing, Scott, is that we could make those adjustments in-house. We wouldn't need to go out for an additional rate study if we decide to be more conservative. If we decide to take into account the change in FEMA thresholds, we can do that without derailing this rate study that we're looking to accept tonight.
Correct, because we would have the rate tables, so I would just
adjust.
plug in a different number into that, and it would give me the output. And the other thing, if we had a serious, and this happened in 2008, and a serious economic downturn, we would look at postponing capital and deferring capital improvements and start maintaining, within the maintenance O&M operation solely, as well from an operational standpoint, until there was some level of recovery and comfort with our ability to, fund major capital improvements.
Great, thank you. Councilor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I guess I'm curious along those same lines if we already possibly have that lever in place. And what I'm looking at is our wastewater fund policy that is listed with all of our policies, and it says the wastewater fund maintained an unrestricted and undesignated balance of 25% of the average annual expenditures of the prior 3 years, in addition to the amount required to comply with debt covenants or legal requirements. So as I looked through our last 3 actuals of those expenditures and then took that 25%, and it came awfully close to what you've got here as a 90-day O&M. So what I'm thinking is that when we take up the discussion of financial policies, that's something that we can look, because we also have the other sub-policy relative to contingency appropriation and not less than 3% of our annual operating expenditures. So I think that we can take a look at this, and I would assume that these financial policies were some way integrated in this. It looks like they were, or maybe it was just done through the lens of the rate study, and they just kind of came together. But I do think that we might be able to, this looks good. I think we can have that discussion when we have a broader financial policy discussion, although probably not in one sitting, relative to the complexity of these. But that is something that we can take into consideration relative to what we feel. Bring Scott and Bryn in here and ask some questions and say would you feel comfortable with, what is right, and so forth, and to be able to see if we can get this right and moving forward and dialed in as we move forward to these new realities.
And I would say always, from my standpoint, look at having a higher contingency availability that's appropriated within the budget, because that gives you direct access in an emergency situation to those additional funds relative to carrying an unappropriated ending fund balance that meets the policy limits.
Councilor Kaplan?
Yeah, thanks. It seems like it's begging for the question that I'm going to ask, which is, we've talked about the blue part, which is the operating fund, and the reserve or the fund balance requirements. We've talked about the equipment, the green equipment fund that's going to grow over time to be able to pay specifically for equipment. But we haven't really talked about the wastewater SDC fund. So could you just remind us what are the rules on use of the wastewater SDC fund, and can those wastewater SDC funds be used for those kinds of activities that would otherwise hit the fund balance?
So system development charges are capacity-related charges paid through new development and expansion and increased need on the utility itself. Within your master plans, your collection system master plan, your facility plan, there's generally a methodology that allocates a certain percentage of those system development charges to go towards capital improvements, anywhere from 0 to 100%. And typically, whenever we cash fund a project or if we debt service a project, we have that percentage SDC allocation go towards that project. So if it's 10% SDC available from a capacity standpoint, and we borrow from DEQ for it, 10% of the debt payment structure is paid for by those SDCs, and then 90% by the rate structure. And that's kind of allocated in what Josiah has done as part of the cost of service revenue study.
Great.
Because
Go ahead.
because previously we didn't have separately reflected SDC funds. They were part of the different funds, I think.
There's a separate SDC fund now, but that was the process even before there was a separate SDC fund created by the finance department in the last cycle.
So the separately designated SDC fund just provides more transparency and clarity.
Yeah,
to
you
that.
can actually see the appropriation and the availability of funding directly.
Which we didn't see before because it was just part of the fund balance.
Yeah.
Councilor Dale?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just a quick little contextual footnote to that is that within, again, our financial policies, that SDC wastewater fund, even though it's listed, is considered to be part of the wastewater fund for the purposes of this policy. So we'll just need to take that into consideration as we do the math.
And it's completely restricted for those specific uses.
Yeah. Okay. We can go on now?
Right, so that is the revenue requirement. Again, that gets us our total cost that we need to cover when we provide service. So jumping into then the cost of service, which asks, what is the generation of revenue for each customer class that is fair based on how they utilize the system. So for the cost of service for wastewater, we looked at residential, multifamily, and then non-residential, which included commercial, governmental, and municipal. So when we look at a summary of those results, we see the gray area is their current revenue generation, and then the blue bar is the distributed costs, or when we go through our analysis, the accumulated costs that we're able to identify for residential customers. And so within this box is the overall rate adjustment. So the dashed line, we didn't focus on it much in the prior slide. I'll switch back there because I think it's probably worth it here. But this dashed line is what we're projecting revenues will need to be in order to cover those costs. You can see it's equivalent to the summation of all of our expenses. And so that gives us the target for the total amount of revenue we need to generate, and the cost of service gives us that proportional share between the customer classes. As we can see, based on their current and projected revenue generations, multifamily, what we saw was there was a need to lower their revenue generation relative to residential and then commercial, governmental, municipal, the non-residential customers. And so that is incorporated within the proposed rates that we will look at here on the next slide. And so what we came up with was moving the residential fixed charge to be equivalent with the non-residential. And this was based on our analysis of the winter water data that we had available. Since we completed the water rate study last year, we were able to use that data to look at how customers were contributing to the wastewater volumes on the system. And so the multifamily customers per unit is can be anywhere from 60 to 90% typically. And so we incorporated the specific data for your system into it. And so what we came up with was then leaving their rate flat for the first year. And then the remaining years, we tied to 90% of the residential rate for the fixed charge. And then for all customer classes, the volume charge was just increased by the overall percentage. So it's maintained the same proportionality between customer classes. It just increased at that overall revenue generation rate. So in this way, we're trying to reflect what the cost of service showed us, where the multifamily customer class is going to contribute a little bit less in fiscal year 2027, and residential is going to contribute a little bit more, and then non-residential is also going to be contributing more. When we look at a local comparison, obviously not apples to apples. I hate to make these comparisons, but it is helpful sometimes. And everybody's at a different stage, right? Whether they're doing a treatment plant now, in the future, what does their I&I look like? How tight is their system? All these things go into it. But we can't fully know where they're at. However, we can get a surface level assessment based on the rates they charge. And so what you can see in green is where the present rates are for a residential customer with 400 CF of water usage billed. And the proposed rates move up. You would go from $33.94 to $37.48 for fiscal year 2027. Still kind of middle of the pack there, and a little bit of room to go versus some other local utilities, but jumping over Medford. Again, these are for the other agencies a point in time, and so they may be conducting rate studies in the next year or so as well. But for a snapshot in time, this is what the wastewater utility looks like. We don't have any questions on that. That completes wastewater, and so we'll jump into storm drain then. So same assumptions in general as far as independently calculating those revenues. That becomes important as we move from the revenue requirement to the cost of service, utilizing the units that we have from our billing system to base what the cost to provide services for each customer class, and then also the revenue generation in fiscal year 27, assuming some customer growth. We utilize the budgets for fiscal year 26 and 27 that have been adopted, and then project those again into the future based on our inflationary factors so that we can keep pace with our assumed escalation of costs over time. We are including the franchise tax payments for storm drain new for 2027. Currently, they don't make that contribution, and so we are including that within the study. And then as well on the equipment reserve, in fiscal year 2028, we're assuming $25,000 and increasing a year, with the same approach as in wastewater, where we're trying to set some money aside specifically for the equipment related expenses that may come up. Capital, again, short term, there is some large projects that we'll look at, particularly the Hardesty site, and where we have some long-term debt assumed, but we have about $3.5 million from 26 to 37, and averaging around 133,000 a year from rates to contribute towards the renewal and replacement of the storm drain system. Again, the graph summarizing that capital improvement plan and how we're going to fund those projects. We have rate funded capital, the cash funding from rates in the dark gray. Our next component is using reserves again, that we'll see here in a couple slides, short term, trying to use the available reserves we've built up to help us pay for those capital projects, such as the Hardesty site, which we see again 28 and 9, and we're assuming long-term debt in some form. Again, we mentioned before, but I'll mention it again. We're assuming a long-term debt in the form of revenue bonds. So there could be a little bit of a cushion there or conservative component if we're able to secure loan, SRF type loans, low interest loans, as Scott mentioned, then we could adjust the rates possibly. The summary of the revenue requirement then for storm drain, similar to wastewater, we start with our O&M expenses. Those increase that bar, again, based on our inflationary assumptions. We include taxes and transfers, again, just as all the other utilities contribute, starting in fiscal year 27. That's the lighter gray shaded area. Our rate funded capital is the blue shaded area, trying to increase that within the storm drain utility to pay for those renewal and replacement projects as the system ages, and we need to make sure that we're keeping up with the deterioration of those assets. The orange, again, we utilize reserves to fund capital, and so we are replenishing that at the top of that stacked bar chart. And that is where our current revenues are this solid line. And so over time, we're not able to cover our total cost. And so we're projecting revenues at that dashed line in order to cover those costs. Looking at reserves for the storm drain utility, again, strategically drawing those down towards that 90-day target. We don't quite get as close just because the size of the storm drain utility is so much smaller. We didn't feel that it was appropriate to get too close to that dashed line target just because of the total dollars. So again, that's around $250,000, and that, as Scott mentioned, if significant asset failure or even less significant assets failing would take out that money pretty quick. And so we drew it down close to that, but we also then start our equipment reserves in 28 and make contributions to that over this period. And again, you can see our total days of cash on hand as we utilize that, and that is those numbers above the boxes. So for the storm drain cost of service, the analysis is a little bit simplified given the equivalent units that we have. And so that's based on a number of assumptions coming back to the runoff or generation of stormwater from each different type of customer. And so based on those equivalent units, we divide the total cost by those units, and that gives us our rate, which we then multiply by those equivalency factors to come up with what we charge for each customer class. And so that gives us our proportionality. And so on the proposed rates, we're not including any changes to the structure or any cost of service adjustments, just because each customer class is on the same basis, that ERU basis. And so the rates are simply adjusted by that overall revenue generation need for the storm drain utility. Again, looking at some local utilities, I'm not sure Brookings, what they're doing, but it's amazing over there. However, everybody else, we're in this $5 to $10 is typically what we see. And so under the proposed rates for the first year, fiscal year 27, we go from $5.43 to $6.43, and still in line with several local and still significantly below some other ones. So that is my last slide on storm. I'm happy to jump back to any within storm. Otherwise, I can move on to the summary and kind of next steps discussion.
We have a question, Councilor Bloom?
Yeah.
Yeah, question potentially for Scott here. So it talks about in fiscal impacts that if we don't move forward with the rate increase, that they'll have to be offset with reductions to expenditures. Could you give us a sense of what those reductions, what those expenditures would be?
So if you remember the graph with the two lines, the dashed line, you know, the offsetting expenditures primarily is the capital expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so those offsetting expenditures would be capital in nature. This fund is, you know, substantially small, and so making O&M cuts is very difficult because we're managing the day-to-day operations of the storm system. So, you know, that additional equipment reserve fund, that 25,000, we would have to eliminate that, and then we would have to, you know, come back to the council and make recommendations on alterations to capital planning within the storm fund to essentially bring that dash line down to the solid line and figure out the best way to manage that difference.
So aside from capital, we're looking at the equipment side of things.
Yeah, that would be the only thing that we've added, you know, is having an equipment replacement chunk into essentially a sinking fund for each of these funds to help mitigate future costs when you have equipment related issues. So those would be the two items that we would have to have a formal discussion on.
Okay, and could you give us a sense of what impact that will have to ratepayers?
So, you know, you're talking a dollar difference between the current and the proposed. And I think over the next 3 to 4 years, you're looking at a $1 increase annually.
Sorry, I meant in terms of service delivery, not necessarily the cost.
So a couple of the capital projects are to help reduce localized flooding that we would see. So you would still experience some localized flooding on North Mountain. That's one of our bigger projects associated with Phase 2. And that Blaine, Emmerich area, North Mountain area, try to resolve that. And I think there's another project, and I'm recalling from memory a little bit, on Siskiyou to help reduce some localized flooding and improve capacity and conveyance. So not moving those capital projects forward, you know, based on climate conditions and rainfall, we potentially see more localized flooding.
Okay.
That would impact residential areas primarily.
I'm just trying to understand how, you know, a conversation about reduction in expenditures can go while also saying, yeah, let's approve this, let's start building this fund up, but like maybe we need to start having top of mind of how we can kind of slim down a little bit, tighten the belt, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as part of the next budget cycle and process with looking at the capital improvement plan, you know, that would be the discussion at that point about, is this necessary now or in the future as part of the program when that gets brought forward prior to going through the actual budget process for appropriations.
Great,
from a policy standpoint.
Right, got it. Thank you, Scott.
Councilor Sherrill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Scott. Just kind of a technical question here. If we did have compression and we had to look at spending less on equipment, can you help me understand how equipment for storm isn't the same equipment that we would use for, say, collections, like a vac truck or a pump or a crew cab pickup truck that's brand new?
So right now, storm drain is on the O&M side taken care of by a portion of individuals within wastewater collections and a portion of individuals within the street fund. So that equipment is essentially shared between those enterprises right now. And with the regulatory requirements from DEQ through our municipally separated storm sewer permit system, transferring from shoulds previously to shalls, what we're trying to work towards is to actually have staff associated directly with this enterprise and equipment directly associated with this enterprise over a longer kind of period of time to get to that point. So instead of sharing resources across two other enterprises, wastewater collections and streets, having dedicated staff just for this utility itself. They would use the same equipment, but they would have their own vac truck and a service truck. And we're generally talking probably 2 to 3 people just dedicated to the storm drain fund at some point in the future. And that's kind of the trajectory we're focused on from this enterprise, is to get there at some point without having dramatic kind of one-time rate increases, to get there in the next budget cycle. We're talking multiple budget cycles to build that up and get to that point.
Right. Okay. And can I follow up on that? So it sounds like, at least for the paperwork side of it, it would be more efficient, but it would potentially also be a duplication of effort and using the same people and the same equipment in a less efficient manner when it comes to cost per work order, say. Is that something we, like, does the current street fund and collections fund, do they have reserve for equipment already, or are we just trying to create this fund because we have the opportunity to set the standard, which is a good standard? I think we need to be planning for this stuff. But if we didn't have the money, we already have the staff and the equipment doing dual roles, if you will, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a long-standing kind of internal policy from the public works side to try to get to this point where we have some level of reserve, in a sinking fund. And I think Josiah mentioned, we didn't get into detail, but the example I'll use is years ago, we put $150,000 of wastewater treatment money into basically the equipment fund annually. And that paid for the last membrane replacement at $1.5 million. So there was no rate adjustment made for that, because that was on a cash basis and paid for because we had that $150,000 allocated for numerous years into essentially a sinking fund. And I always get nervous from the enterprise operation system of, knowing that you have $50,000, $150,000 pieces of equipment that, all of a sudden you're scrambling. I got to cancel this capital project that I know is needed because I need the cash right now. Some of you might remember the centrifuge discussion we had a couple years ago, where the, 2 is 1 and 1 is none, where we had centrifuge failures, and that ate into our O&M budget. And so we had to reduce O&M expenditures for wastewater treatment during that biennium to ensure that we could get through the biennium. And so having an available fund that can help cover those costs, especially from a sinking fund, is something that I think is important from a management and policy standpoint.
Thank you so much. Great clarification. Thanks, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we can go on.
So that is basically the end of the presentation. So we endeavored on these rate studies, similar to water last year, to make sure we're using industry standard approaches and then tailor it to the specific needs within the city for each utility. And so we're looking for approval of this, and then the ordinances would be brought with the actual rates later. And we'll finalize the documentation of the study and the report if the council chooses.
Any final questions? Councilor Dale.
I got a quick question, and Sabrina, if you don't mind, and this is not for Scott, but I'm looking in our budget, and we can, maybe I'm just curious of your thoughts about this, is our franchise fees that are in there. And what are the thoughts of potentially breaking those out on a utility bill, if we could do that and so forth, so that people could see, hey, these are the actual rates that are going to, this is what's going to, just from a transparency standpoint. And I just don't think we've ever done that, probably because maybe we never thought, but is there a reason that we don't, or so forth? Because I think it would be nice for citizens to be able to see apples to apples exactly on what their rates are saying and what's actually going to services that, franchise fees are absolutely necessary. They go to services and so forth with any utility anywhere, but I just think it needs to probably be broken out. Any thoughts on that, or would you recommend looking into it one way or another?
Yeah, I think we can look into it. I think also we're in the process of reviewing our utility billing software, and so that's something we can see if there's the capability to get more granular on the bill.
Okay, so there wouldn't be any real kind of logistical reason other than just maybe think
Software
about it as we do it through
ability.
the software. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, I mean, you can figure it out in our budgets. It's just, you've got to do some back math and so forth, but it would be nice to see when everybody's looking at it, saying, this is exactly what my rate is, and we've got it as low as we can from the actual service that we're getting for that utility. And of course, there's going to be a franchise fee in there, like there is on any utility. Okay, thank you.
Great. Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. Josiah, I had a quick question of you. You mentioned that if this was to pass, that it would come back and in an ordinance with the actual cost. So the chart that you showed us is not the actual cost?
We're not having action on the actual resolution, right? Scott's going to bring that back, I believe, later this month.
Okay.
So
can you
rates
clarify?
will be the same.
Yeah, so the intent, if council accepts, it's kind of weird timing, but I would bring back the rate resolutions at the meeting in July for the council to consider. And the rate resolution would have all of the kind of numbers on one of the slide broken down specifically. So you would understand what the new multifamily, the new residential, the new commercial governmental institutional rate would be for storm drain and for wastewater, and they're specifically laid out like that, and any sort of additional charges that are imposed. So for example, wastewater hookup outside the city limits and UGB pays twice the monthly fee, and so that gets itemized in that rate resolution, truly similar to what the council previously approved from the water side of things. I just want to coordinate with finance to ensure the date of which they can apply that rate structure into the system and start billing it as part of that next step with council.
So that's the multi-step process, is to accept the study this evening and then to have the rate change by ordinance later.
Correct. And one of the things we just wanted to make sure that the council was comfortable from the policy standpoint of using our alternative for the wastewater multifamily, or the storm drain, or wastewater multifamily reduction, which kind of follows along the policy standpoint that the council previously focused in on with respect to the water rates. So that was the alternative that is now in the final draft study before the council, and that's what we're recommending moving forward, and that's what the rates would be based off of if council accepts.
Great, I appreciate that consistency. Thank you. Any final questions of staff? Councillor Sherrill.
Yeah, just one more, Mayor. I know that there's potentially something coming on the ballot that has to do with utility fees going to the utility. And the way I understand this, and it was broken down very clearly to me, but can you just confirm that every bit of this increase, potential increase that the ratepayer, the citizen would be paying, does go to the actual utility?
These revenues are restricted solely for the use of that enterprise. They are not any other than the franchise fee, which goes to the general fund. They're restricted solely for the use within that enterprise. So wastewater solely for wastewater, storm drain solely for storm drain.
Got it. Thank you.
And those franchise fees are the same franchise fees that an external utility company would be paying if someone else was handling these issues. So these are not, just for the people at home, franchise fees, you can just confirm, something that I think we've talked about a number of times, but so that people understand that this is not something that the city of Ashland simply attaches, but this is what utilities, is a standard procedure for utilities.
This isn't. So water and wastewater have had a franchise fee for decades and decades, and it's at that 8% marker. And that's accounted for in the budget itself. And since storm drain is a relatively new fund, it slipped by for the first couple of cycles, and that's why we talked about it and make the recommendation that it should also act like a normal enterprise fund with a franchise fee allocation towards it.
Great, thank you. Any remaining questions? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Dale?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I move to accept the wastewater and storm drain rate study developed by HDR Engineering.
Second that.
Councillor Dale?
Nope. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Josiah.
Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you. This is price of doing business in an escalating, more expensive world. And as the rate study showed, they seem to be in line with our neighbors, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But we have impeccable service here in the city of Ashland, and we're planning for, our future proofing. I love to see the reserves in there. They seem light to me, but what do I know? But I applaud the efforts and the fiscal responsibility to get it done, as opposed, to not doing. The cost of not doing anything is too much. These rates at 18% kind of on average seem like a lot, but really it's just $1 here and a couple dollars there. So I appreciate all this effort, and keeping the rates low, I think, is important. And again, thank you.
Councillor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I was looking at Josiah and Scott. I appreciate you bringing this forward, but something you said, Scott, that really resonated to me was, you said, should we do this now or should we do it later when it comes time to the capital improvement projects? And is this a necessity? Do we have to do this now? And I heard mention it's $1 here and $1 there, but compounded on all these other fees, it does add up. And I was looking at, under new business, I heard the Hardesty property being brought up, and we're going to discuss that in a minute. And the Hardesty property was purchased to support the wastewater and the storm drain. So I believe when it comes time to looking at these capital improvement projects that I think we need to actually take a very close look at, if the Hardesty property is divested of, taking that money and putting it towards whatever is needed to support the wastewater and the storm drain. That was the purpose of purchasing that property. So as it stands right now, I will not be supporting this because when I look at all of the fees and miscellaneous and the state of the world, now is not the time. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Scott. I agree with you on that, and I will not be supporting this.
Any further discussion? Councillor Boone.
Thank you both for doing the work on this. It is never easy, for me anyways, to raise rates. It hurts, actually. But it's, obviously it's the responsible thing to do. We need to take care of our enterprise funds. We need to make sure that we have good storm drain collection system. But, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, this is other people's money that we're spending on things, right? And it takes a village, and that's important to know. But when we have conversations and, there's discussion about sharing equipment and, we're not really interested in sharing equipment. We kind of want to have our own equipment and get new equipment. I think it's important to understand that, with financial challenges that ourselves and so many other institutions are facing, that the responsible thing to do is to look at every opportunity to find efficiencies and to save, at least for now, until we can, get a better sense of where things are going to be in the next few years. So I would just put that out there.
And I would just add that, when we do a rate study like this, what it does is set up the future conversations. So council still has to approve rate increases as we go. We still have to improve the capital improvement projects that are identified. We have to thread that needle of making sure that we're paying for the right things at the right time, and we're changing rates as is appropriate, and we're adjusting as we go. And I think we saw that in the history of both of these rates in terms of us not increasing the wastewater rate since 2019 and the storm drain rate since 2021. And so I remember those conversations, and what we were saying at the time was, especially around the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, is that we had to do everything we possibly could to not add burden at that time. It's not a good time now either, but I remember that being a particularly bad time to be raising rates. And so this kind of equalizing at this point seems to me to be a responsible way to set the table for the decisions that the council has to make moving forward. If there are no additional comments or discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Duquesne,
No.
Hanson,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
motion pass.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. We are going to take a short recess. Counselors, please be back in your seats at 8:10 by that clock. Thank you. slight change in the order of our agenda. We are going to take up the question of the Wildfire Readiness 2026 fire season first, and then we will move on to the other two conversations that are under new business. Sabrina?
Yes, thank you. So tonight we wanted to give an overview of how we have prepared and are preparing for wildfire season. So thank you to Deputy Chief Shea, as well as our emergency manager, Kelly Burns, as well as we have some really great CERT volunteers in the audience who came tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to them to go over how we have done this good work.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will begin with the fire department's work regarding wildfire mitigation and preparedness. We'll start with outreach and education. The Ashland School District reached out to fire department staff with the interest to harden all of their structures against wildfire. Fire department staff met with school district representatives, performed assessments on all structures, and are providing guidance and subject matter expert on working with the school district to better harden all of the schools against wildfire. We have also engaged approximately 1,000 citizens over the last year through direct and online education, those events being kind of in person and online. Those include Firewise and HOA presentations, air cleaner workshops, regional collaborative events, and a webinar co-hosted with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, outlining the wildfire prepared home standards. Moving on to community mitigation, the annual green debris drop-off event, which is a collaboration between Recology and the City of Ashland, resulted in 120 cubic yards of yard debris being removed from the community. And then we had the opportunity to host the Northwest Youth Corps in March and April of this year. They did quite a bit of mitigation at no cost in the city. That included mitigating 10 acres of city-owned land. They removed dead and down fuels, blackberries, maintained a fuel break that was all adjacent to 81 homes. Additionally, they reduced fuel in 4 neighborhoods, treated 5 acres, protecting 178 homes. With that, removed 26 flammable trees next to homes, removed about a half acre of manzanita brush, 30 cubic yards of juniper was removed, and 250 feet of riparian mitigation was handled. Onto the forestry. 73 piles were burned. That equates to about 15 tons of fuel that was eliminated from the municipal forest over the last year. As you know, in 2024, Siskiyou Mountain Park went through a logging project to remove dead and dying trees. This year, we planted 100 acres of native seeds for native plants, and 3,200 pine trees were planted. Those pine trees were gifted to the city from the local BLM office. We also secured grant funding of $185,000 from the Oregon Department of Forestry to conduct more prescribed burning in the watershed for the years 2027 and 2028, and conducted 19 fire season drone flights over the watershed, which resulted in locating 8 instances of illegal camping that was resolved with our partnership with Ashland Police.
Before you move on, you mentioned that there were 73 piles burned. Do we have piles left in the watershed that are going to have to kind of over summer? And what would that, do we know what that number is?
There are piles left in the watershed. I don't have that number offhand.
Okay, I think if we can just get that and share it with the council, it'd be good to have a sense of the proportionality of how many we've been able to burn this year and how many are still left.
Yeah, we can do that. On to weed abatement, this year we've had 72 cases opened for weed abatement. Currently, we have 4 that are moving towards the process of citation and/or abatement. Those four are known properties that have been cited and abated in years previous, so they're not new properties necessarily to this. And with the weed abatement process, that equates to about 50 acres of mitigation through the partnership with the community. Before I move on to Kelly, any questions for me?
Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Lots of work. That's incredible what's been accomplished. And I'm curious, when we're talking about the illegal camping that you identified through drones, when we're out in the watershed doing our thing, where do we report those camps to? Do we report them to you or to the police or to Kelly?
I think you could report them to staff, to Kelly, to Chris. I think also a general report to on C-Click Fix would get that to the correct staff member.
Okay, and do we have the jurisdiction to address illegal camping in Forest Service that's like really close to city property, or is it the same?
That we'd lean on our partnership with Forest Service law enforcement or potentially Jackson County Sheriff.
Some of us don't know, 20 feet this way or that way, whether we're on Forest Service or city property when we're up in the watershed running around.
Yeah, I think that's where the report to C-Click Fix would allow us to look into those jurisdictional boundaries and for the police department to handle it appropriately, whether that be themselves or turfing it to a neighboring agency.
Okay, and again, this isn't like necessarily trying to chase off campers. This is like, the Glenview fire that happened a couple years ago and somebody was cooking inappropriately in the watershed. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to mitigate is fire created by people camping in the watershed.
Correct.
Right. Well, again, thanks for everything. This is great. Keep going.
Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, just a small thing from Chief O'Meara is that in Oregon, there's shared jurisdictions. So they can go anywhere and conduct law enforcement actions in any jurisdiction. It doesn't matter.
C-Click Fix works then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mayor, councilors, city staff, legal, recorder, and citizens of Ashland, thank you for being flexible and allowing us to bump up our presentation. We do have a pretty significant natural gas leak going on downtown that our fire heroes and our Vista heroes are trying to wrap up right now, and I am sending emergency messages on updates so that we can do that. So thank you for hearing this part. Your emergency management program, it's busy. But in a good way. And so I'm going to talk to you about 4 key areas here: wildfire season preparedness, which I'm going to hammer again on evacuation zones and routes. I'm going to talk about evacuation planning, level 1, 2, and 3. We're going to talk about regional coordination and all the events that I've been doing over the last few months, but then as well as what we have this summer to get everybody ready for wildfire. And I want to make sure I'm not confusing you. You're expecting a presentation on the emergency management program with the city of Ashland, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I saw the mayor frowning, and I didn't want to
No.
go off.
I was just
too far
thinking,
afield.
not frowning, just thinking.
Maybe a misspelling here or there. All right, we're going to talk about Jackson Alerts and Everbridge and how that's working, and I can tell you as of this evening, it's still working quite well. Individual preparedness, then, I brought some representatives with me, a different kind of blue wave in the background, and the Ashland CERT program was recently handed to emergency management, and we've revitalized things, and we have some plans for all of Ashland as well as the region. Better Prepared Neighborhoods is another program that we're going to talk about. It is in its infancy. Some seeds have been planted, and I'm excited to have our CERT team handling that. And then what's next? I'm going to leave you feeling up, but I'm going to remind you that we're heading into drought and extreme heat, and that coupled with wildfire seasons is not awesome for this fire season, if that's the best way to say it. Finally, we're going to be doing in October a full functional exercise of a dam failure. Not a dam failure, but a dam failure. Excuse my language. So for wildfire preparedness, I wanted to remind you that we did something amazing here last year in October. We did an evacuation drill all through the community. We even reached our Latinx community as well as our Ukrainians. We have 23 Ukrainian families that have relocated to our area. And so we translated all of our messaging into that, and we did have some participation from them, but good participation across all the zones in Ashland. And so we had researchers as well come here to try to map traffic data, and we are still compiling the rest of that report. I have it on the Google Drive. It's just not completely signed off by the private researchers from the UK, Canada, and then across the United States. And I can't wait to release it to you so you can see it. It is a rich data set. It will help decision makers in like what they can do to better prepare for us for the evacuation drill. Here's my favorite picture from the evacuation drill. That is the North Mountain escape ramp, which we got to test for the very first time. We also cross-trained our street department as well as our police department with ODOT in how to open that up and to run it. And then a lot of citizens got to drive it. And this is my favorite picture because somebody who's going to evacuate with their trailer practiced driving the ramp with their trailer. So that's one of a kind. Thanks, Bob Palermini, for that shot. He gets all the best pictures.
Councilor Bloom.
Oh, yes.
Yes, quick question. I get a lot of questions from the community asking, are we going to do this again?
Yeah, so I can tell you that this year we are not going to be able to do it again because we are going to be full tilt doing the full functional exercise. I have been asked by our public works director if we could incorporate an evacuation and a citizen participation, evacuation, and I'm not opposed to doing that for the dam failure drill. We do have people that live in the inundation zone, and I think my CERT volunteers are going to be happy to help out with some of the coordination on that. But because I will be fully occupied with the exercise, and even you all will be part of the exercise, that whole framework will need to be built, and I think we can do it. I think it would be good for the city to do it. So yes, and.
Great, thank you.
And maybe a wildfire drill the year after.
Yeah.
Because I think we all need it.
Well, I mean, not only was it helpful, but I mean, it felt like a cool community event that brought us all together in one place, and that doesn't get to happen that often. So
yeah,
anyways,
just a quick question then. I don't know if this is allowed. Who participated among you? Thank you, Dylan.
I did the off-ramp. It was great. It
Oh,
was
you
so
did the
much
off-ramp,
fun.
yeah.
I felt like a hooligan or something.
If you haven't heard the mayor's story too about her own human story about trying to evacuate, I would encourage you to hear her chat about that. So, all right.
All the things you think you know and then you realize you don't.
Yes, it's good, and anyway, it's so relevant. It's also relevant. All right, so like, how are we looking at our zones? We know that as of 2021, Ashland had the first evacuation zones in the valley, and then the rest of the county was like, what is Ashland doing there? Hey, we need those. And so in 2024, after working with Jackson County a lot and talent a lot, we puzzle pieced and made evacuation zones all throughout. Where do you find those? It's the Genesis Protect mapping tool. It's online, it's an app. If this is the first time you've heard it, it's okay. What I'm trying to do is push this out so that more people are aware of it. You'll see most of California has adopted Genesis Protect. And I was in Idaho recently, who is just now thinking that evacuation zones is a good idea. And they are going to adopt the Genesis Protect software tool too. So it's easy to get on your device, and it's one of the quickest moving map online tools that you can have. It shows if a zone is in level 1, 2, or 3, which are our levels. And so when I do public events or when I'm talking to you all and I'm talking to citizens of Ashland, I'm pushing Genesis Protect as well. Great tool.
So Kelly, before you move on from there, I know that when we receive the emergency notices that there's a level 1 or 2 or 3 evacuation, it tells us it's JAC something. And then I've clicked into that link and had some trouble figuring out where it actually was. Is that because I need to download the Genesis app, or is that, so I'm trying to figure out, how does this app work with our emergency management, and do we need to have both of them on our phones?
I think I can explain that, because Everbridge is the messaging system, right? We use Jackson Alerts, which is Everbridge, but they are not fully integrated with Genesis Protect. And so, yes, you need both.
Need both, okay.
That's probably the simplest answer. I would just say there's a lot of people that are leaning on Watch Duty right now. I cannot fully endorse it because it is crowdsourced, and we had an instance where somebody put bad information out there and it spun people up. And yet, last year, Watch Duty was pretty good. So I would trust but verify on Watch Duty. I like it. It's got the AQI. It's got all the zones. It's got the wind. I don't know anybody else that has that. So, but I wouldn't use that as my only source of information, just from your emergency manager.
Great, thanks.
Moving on, so evacuation planning. Last year, I worked with the Ashland Family YMCA a bit because they had approached me and said, hey, we know all businesses in Ashland already have evacuation plans, and we don't. Will you help us? And I said, you're the first that's actually approached. And so what we did was we worked together with them because the Ashland Family YMCA is complicated. They have preschools in Talent in Phoenix. They have Camp DeBoer up at Lake of the Woods. And then they have the most amazing YMCA on the planet here in Ashland, where everybody goes. And what do you do when a level 1 or a level 2 or a level 3 happens? And so what we did was design the plan around that framework. I'm talking to businesses, I'm talking to cities, I'm talking to you all. When you make your own plan, think about what you're going to do with a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. If level 2 and level 3 match, great. For businesses, same thing, and I'm going to talk about a program we're about to do. Just for a quick review, the state of Oregon adopted 3 levels for the state of Oregon, level 1, 2, and 3. That is the same language that Ashland uses, that Jackson County uses, that Josephine County uses, bless their hearts, and anywhere in Oregon is using this system. So any messages you get, you will have this. And so if you are planning your own evacuation, which you might be involved in one day, I encourage you to think about what you're going to do in level 1, just 3 things, 2 or 3 things. What you're going to do in level 2, what you're going to do in level 3. Speaking of other regional coordination, so some of our events this week, partnered with the Chamber of Commerce, we are going to do a business preparedness workshop. And we're going to talk about some of these things, but we're going to relate it, specifically to businesses. So we're going to talk about making your level 1, 2, and 3 plans. We also have a lot on the agenda. Thank you, Sandra Slattery and the rest of the competent team of the Chamber of Commerce. And that will be the date shown here. And it's a morning thing. We did a lunch last year, and there were too many clinking forks and things, so we want people to be active. So I will be part of that. I hope you join. Other emergency preparedness events, we did a series of 4 workshops last year. That was a heavy lift. And we did an unusual partnership with Ashland.News, Ashland Together, and Ashland Climate Collaborative. This year, we've got one big event that we're doing. It's going to be similar to the last one that we did in July called What's Your Plan?, where you get to go through a wildfire scenario with your fellow citizens and businesses and talk about how you would plan for that and do that. That has big impact. It's going to be in July. We already know the fire season is early. We've already had an evacuation over here. Like, we're already in it. I think there's great value in also doing training even during the season, because it hopefully will help reduce our stress around it if you can work in it and train in it a little more. So that's July 15th. What's your plan at SOU? Yours truly will be there. If you want to see last year's on video, they're on the web pages of the Better Prepared web pages, and each event is there. If you have time to watch those YouTube videos, do that. I hear that the kids these days are only watching like 15-second videos, so I don't imagine many of them are, but hopefully some of them are. Other regional coordination events, I am doing HOAs, I am talking to other businesses, and I'm really trying to get the word out, because we all know we're never going to have enough firefighters, we're never going to have enough cops, sorry Mark, we're never going to have enough firefighters or cops to like take care of the whole Almeda event again. We will for some events, and so what I'm doing is getting our community ready to handle these situations. We're also working with CERT to and put them in part of the equation. This particular picture was just from this last week. Scout Troop 112 wanted a presentation on emergency management so they could get their emergency preparedness badges. So now we're talking to the kids about it, and when we talk to the kids, they'll talk to their parents and make them get ready. Okay. Let's talk about Jackson Alerts. A good coordination with our Jackson County emergency managers. That was a heavy lift last year to go from Citizen Alert, which you might remember, to just Jackson Alerts, just Jackson County Alerts. And so lots of people in Ashland signed up. I do have some metrics on that. They're not in front of me, so I don't want to misquote. But at some point, a couple months after we switched over, and I looked at the metrics on Everbridge, they had us close to 7,000 new signups in Ashland. That's about a third of our population, potentially, that wasn't on Jackson Alerts before. That's amazing. So good on you, Ashland. And then the other thing that our Jackson County team has done is, because the success of the 97520, which is our text alert we had with Nixle back in 2014 and 15 that has 19,000 people on it, Jackson County was like, we should have a text alert for any evacuation in Jackson County. So if you don't have this on your phone, I expect you to grab your device and text Jackson EVACS to 888-777, because as much as we want to stay in the bubble of Ashland because it's nice here, we do travel out to go other places in the valley because they're also special too. And if there's an evacuation going on around Crater Lake and you're thinking about taking a trip up there, Jackson EVACs will tell you, hey, there's an evacuation zone that's in a level 1 or a level 2 there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's a pretty good idea from our Jackson County team, and I'm pushing that as well. We also have Spanish translations for everything, and I know that with the last test, they did find an issue with the translation. The written is good, but when you use a robo voice to read it out loud to somebody that's just on the phone, it phonetically doesn't get it yet. And that's a piece that our Everbridge software company needs to get to, because I think there's other places that have figured it out. Speaking of Spanish, all the levels are translated into Spanish, and there's a few more that are available out there too. So that's your Latinx community getting ready. Let's talk about individual preparedness now before I wrap up. And I know you guys got it.
Kelly, we have a question from Councilor Duquesne.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. Kelly, I know you're going 100 miles an hour. Quick question. When we did the evacuation series with Ashland Together last year, I was there and I thought it was very successful. My question is sometimes when we were doing different scenarios and people left, there was still a question of individuals and how we're on our own if and when this emergency comes. Is there any way that people can have evacuation maps so they're on their own? Maybe it's a beautiful day and it's September and I just want to get in my car and look at an app that shows me I can take this route or this road and exit wherever this emergency is coming from.
I'm really glad you asked this, Councilor Duquesne. I do remember you asking if we even had printouts of the zones that show kind of the ways out. And
Yeah,
based on your feedback last year, we have those now. I did not design our Know Your Zone Esri mapping tool. I'm just saying that in advance. But if you go into the City of Ashland's Know Your Zone map, you can click on a zone. And when you see it, we have this really cool colored map. I really like it. It's a little slower than Genesis Protect, but it's good. And when you click on it, on the left-hand bar of the screen, it'll say, click this to view a map, a PDF map. And it will show a zone with lots of different ways out of the zones. Which way do you go in the fire? That's incident dependent, we can't always say. But at least it shows all your streets very clearly. And we're making a push at our business levels to try to, if your hotel is in zone 3,
Yes.
we want you to post that map.
Yeah, I think that's very cool, Kelly, because if there is a real emergency, nobody will be able to go to their device.
Yes.
So being able to put that hard copy in your toolkit, so when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah,
I think that's great. Thank you.
And I mean, ultimately, I'm going to be a hard teacher for everybody here. Ashland is only 6.1 square miles. You can learn a few more roads and routes in the time that you live here. It's time to do that. My father was a little annoying when he would take us places. He would always drive a different route on the way home, which pained us. But I get it now. So as much as we want someone to tell us exactly where to go, like it's time. It really is time for everybody to start learning.
Thanks, Kelly, and it'll be good for the businesses too, because visitors don't know where they're going.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, so Ashland CERT's doing a lot of public outreach and education. We are still holding monthly trainings. It's the second Wednesday of the month. It's in evenings. Our new home is Ashland Fire and Rescue Station 2. Thank you, Chief. And we do trainings there monthly. This next Wednesday, sorry, not tomorrow, but a week from Wednesday, we are doing a level 1 evacuation notification practice where CERT will go door to door and notify folks. In Zone 6, we have a very specific area mapped out for that, and we have some experienced CERT volunteers who have done it before. We have a new slew of CERT volunteers who have signed up since I took over in November that are also excited to participate in this. That'll be a week from Wednesday, and then each second Wednesday of the month we are hosting relevant, good trainings for disaster preparedness. The next big thing is the 2026 Basic Training Academy that CERT puts on most years. Thank you, Sydney Jenkins, for helping coordinate this before. We have picked areas at SOU and our 90 North Mountain area to do the exercises. I'm a big fan of hands-on training for our citizens. And so we're hoping to get a lot of new citizens to sign up to do disaster training, and that's going to happen in September 2026. With Ashland CERT, I wanted to highlight this new program that started called the Better Prepared Neighborhoods. There's a need for people to understand wildfire risk around their homes. We're doing a bit of that, and the evacuation component. And so what we have is 2 really active and excited CERT volunteers that wanted to teach that. And so between Brian Hendricks and myself, we started working on the curriculum. And so we have now, and I'll just highlight them if they're okay. I'd like to highlight Mike Connolly and Reggie Wyndham, who are invited into neighborhoods, whether they be HOAs or climate collaborative neighborhoods or just a neighborhood group that wants to know more about wildfire risk reduction around the homes. And the program goes something like, and they do it outside, so you have to be outside and able to walk. They do presentation slides, not on PowerPoint. Apologies if this is a long slide presentation, but it's outside. They talk about the 0 to 5 space, and then they talk about evacuation preparedness, and they talk about the levels and the messages and go bags. And then they do a walk around your neighborhood looking at features you've just learned about on what you could do to make your home safer. And it's being received very well. It's very grassroots. I can't exhaust them, but I know that they've got 2 programs a month for the next 4 or 5 months. That's about their capacity. And we are trying to train other CERT volunteers to be excited about teaching this. Community-led, great stuff. And then what's next? Now that I got you all pumped up, hey, we're heading into a drought. And we're gonna have maybe one of the hottest summers on record. And what I know from 2015, and most of our weather nerds know, is that 2015 was a year of drought and heat and one of the worst wildfire seasons ever. And so potentially we're heading into that. So hey, everybody, get your phones all set up to receive your evacuation orders. Go practice your evacuation maybe. And then think about what we can do to conserve water and help ourselves out. The research project reports are coming out. I already have the household response to wildfire from Boise State. That's online now that you can read. There's a shorter one and a longer one. I like a long read, so we included that. And then finally, we've got the full functional exercise of a dam failure coming up in October. And so there's a lot more staff trainings coming in. There is training for you counselors as well too, so that you can function within the realm of an incident command system as well, doing what you're supposed to do. The household response to wildfires linked on this presentation. Our campaign, Fire, Water, Get Ready, put together by Dorinda Cottle, and then with the help from Fire and Emergency Management, it's all out right now too for everybody to see. Thoughts, questions, or feedback, and thank you.
Councillor Bloom.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. I just wanted to comment that I appreciate everything you do and the work that you've been putting into this. And I don't think that it's possible to have more confidence in an emergency event because of your leadership. So thank you so much. Like really, I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I should be concerned, so I'm not gonna say I'm not concerned, but I have a incredibly high degree of confidence because of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely what Councillor Bloom said, for sure. So I was hoping this slide was coming up because I was thinking about is to be prepared. And so this is this is one thing, as we're sitting up here and all of the things and staff and you folks, there's all the competing things and the stuff and limited resources, and we're just trying to put all the pieces together in the best amount. But what I found is when this comes up, and this is a very scary subject, and we all think about this and so forth, and we think about the routes and learn new roads and all of this stuff. But one of the things that popped up in more than one discussion over the past several months that hadn't occurred to me was this, maybe I'll just use what it sounded like to me, was like a pre-evacuation. So it was something like, can you speak to the extent that you can't really tell someone what their own risk level is? Every individual, every family has to decide what their risk tolerance is, and we can't solve for everything. You said Ashland 6.1 miles. It's also geographically very restricted by geography, very few ways out and so forth. And so one of the discussions that I actually just stumbled upon was folks talking about, well, when you see the storm coming, or you see the red flag day, or you see the whatever, you go, I may go a day early. Of course, we want people to obviously visit, all of the things with the Chamber of Commerce. But can you speak to how it's okay for people to think about what their risk profile is relative to what they're doing. And if they feel like they need to leave early, or come back late, or however that is, what advice would you give to how people should think about risk, even though it's ultimately up to them and their families? Is there any words of wisdom?
Yeah, hopefully words of wisdom. So I would say some of our predictors are out there and you should pay attention, because fire still remains one of those things we can't tell when it's going to start. If we know the wind direction, we know which way it's going to go. And if we know how strong the wind is going to be, we know that it could be worse. Firefighters do a very good job stopping most fires, but what I want people to pay attention to is the weather. I think Sharice Sidoriak said it at the Better Prepared thing last year, when people are like, well, how do we know? How do we know which way to go? Why aren't you telling us? And one of the things that she said was, if you don't have the information in front of you, if it's not coming through your device, if somebody's not ordering you to go in a certain direction, like, what can you feel on your own body? And so if you're standing outside and you can feel the wind on your body, that's information. So understanding the weather, for me, that just, I think, was a good salient point that she made. The other piece then is that you don't have to wait to be told to go. Some people think they're going to wait until a level 3 gets there. And what we know is that for some people, a level 2 is like, okay, it's time to go, because they might need more time. For some people, it's level 1. And yes, you do have to assess your own risk if you need more time, if you have a lot of pets, if you have a lot of family members. So it really falls onto everyone to get ready for stuff like this. And some events will just end up being small because we'll be able to catch them. Some events will get beyond the control of our fire department. The days that it will get beyond the control are windy, windy days. And so we just had a good windstorm here about a week or so ago, and then we had a fire out at Hilton Fuels off of Tolo Road on far northwest end of Jackson County. That was a good practice for everybody to pay attention to what's going on.
Councilor Hanson.
I don't know that I answered your question, Councilor Dale,
You did
but I
perfectly.
tried.
Thanks, Kelly.
Can we call you Disaster Master, Burns?
Only if there's a T-shirt.
You teed up my question very nicely. So during the windstorm the other day on watch duty, I was checking it out, and our neighbors in Pacific Power territory are experiencing PSPS, which is the Prescribed Safety Power Shutdowns. And we had a wind event that blew over several power poles in Medford. One of them caught the Blackwell fire, made that happen. Is there anything that we're doing in the city of Ashland to address wind event, blowing utility lines, transformers, that kind of thing? Are we going to expect?
Yes, so we have to break this. We need to say thank you and let you go on and do your business this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Sabrina's got the answer for that, because Tom McBartlett, your electric department head, he's on it. And it's, you say, Councilor Bloom, that you have confidence. I have confidence in our electric department.
Great, thank you. We can ask any further questions just directly to Kelly or through you. Yeah, through email. Thank you. And thank you to all the CERT volunteers who have come this evening. We so appreciate your service. And Mark as well.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Maybe city manager can answer that.
Yeah, let's try.
Can you ask it again?
Yeah, thanks. Pacific Power Territory has these prescribed safety power shutdowns to help mitigate fire from blowing over power lines and all the associated things that happen with that. Do we have any kind of safety protocols? Are we looking into that?
Yeah, I can have Tom get you our safety protocols. We're built a little bit differently than Pacific Power, and so we don't cycle through the same kind of shut-off that they do, but we can get you details about that.
Yeah, I'm just really looking for that kind of, what are we doing to mitigate? And is our community going to be expecting any kind of?
Yeah, so I think one of the big things they've been doing lately, part of their capital projects, is replacing wood poles with fiberglass poles.
Yeah.
They also have a pretty robust wildfire plan regarding the electric system.
Great, thank you.
And we do have the wildfire resilience plan that they developed. I think that's what it was called. I may be couple years back that they finished that. It was mandated by the state, I think, but I think we were very, very quick on the job of getting that handled. So I think we might be able to also pull that up and just see. But it would be good, I think, from time to time, because I know that there were activities and projects that were identified in there. So, just from time to time, maybe let's see how we're doing against that plan. So we are now to the North Mountain property surplus. Welcome back.
So Scott has been very patient. Thank you.
Yes.
So you might recall from our budget adoption process, one of the directions council gave us to look at the property that the city owns and determine if there's property to surplus. So Scott is here tonight with 2 properties that are available. Staff has determined that we will not be utilizing them for city functions, so they are available for surplus. So we'll go over the North Mountain property first.
So we've been talking property a lot, and we're going to talk some more real quick on this one. So there was some information out there that this property was previously surplused. I could not find anything in the record at all. And so in order to clean that up, we're bringing it forward and asking the council to deem this a surplus parcel so we could move forward with the next steps. So it's a 1/3 of an acre parcel off of North Mountain. It's accessed off of East Nevada Street in the North Mountain zone. It's zone North Mountain multifamily. It has the ability for a 4.2 unit density basis. I coordinated a little bit with planning to see what the development potential is, and this is kind of the information that they've provided. There are utilities directly available within Nevada Street for developing that property itself. And there is an existing kind of right-of-way area between that parcel and the adjacent parcel to the west that potentially could be vacated, or it could be utilized for access for the those parcels existing that are adjacent to the street frontage there. We had the property appraised in 2021 at $300,000, and that was that's just your bare land appraisal based on the development potential and the location and the zoning. So the request to council tonight is to make a formal motion to actually surplus the property, which would allow us to move forward with development of the public hearing and following the new municipal code that the city council approved, where we would describe the property, kind of what I've done tonight, what it can be used for, the reasons why we find it necessary, that we no longer need it as a community. And then, the formal notice would have the time and place. And then if we so choose to move forward, staff would recommend, that we would just use a listing agent and market the property directly. In speaking with Director Goldman on the planning side, there is some potential that property could be combined with an adjacent property to increase the development potential. So we were going to reach out directly to the adjacent owners as well and let them know about the potential sale listing if the council moves forward with this process.
Great. Thank you, Scott. And I remember when we looked at this as a council at a study session, a special study session years ago, and one of the things that the council had directed staff to do was to look at a couple of different parcels that were in front of us for any potential for childcare or affordable housing. And we'd come to the conclusion with the information back from staff that this, because of its location, this site wasn't well suited to either of those other city goals, but we didn't ever go through the process of actually surplusing it. So I think this is important to have this conversation in front of the council at this point. Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, it would be at the public hearing at which time that we would give direction for the sale proceeds and where those go, correct?
It's
because somebody's on.
That's not really a part of the sale process. That's more, we just kind of followed the statute. So at the public hearing, you're just really defining the terms of the sale,
okay,
and that sort of thing.
So when would that time take place where we say we want the money to go to a particular fund?
I think that would depend on like what the how the property was purchased. That's, I think.
Do a
finance, they're pretty
supplemental
screening
to
towards that.
accept that revenue.
Yeah, I think, the proceeds to purchase this came out of the general fund. So I think if you wanted to put it back towards the general fund or put it towards facilities, reserve, that's a policy decision.
Because that's what I'm thinking is facilities. I think we've had that conversation about like, hey, when we sell land, let's try and build that facilities fund up.
So I think, I just want to ensure that it was the general, it's general fund. So tonight you could move to surplus the property, and then part of that motion is to, the proceeds of the sale go towards.
Okay, so tonight's the appropriate time.
Yeah, I think as
Okay.
part of the motion, that's
Thank you.
appropriate.
Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to know the appropriate time also. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dale?
Thank you. Yeah, just a clarifying question, what Councilor Bloom was asking, and then I've got another question. So if I heard Johan, I think, both of you, that it's, the way I'm thinking about it is if the property stipulates any sort of restriction from how it was purchased, then we would have to abide by that. Otherwise, if there's no restriction, then we're not restricted of where we could put it in the future. Would that be a correct way to think about that?
Yeah, so I think generally, if a fund purchases something, we reimburse the fund.
But I want to first understand if we legally have to do that. I mean, if the X fund purchased it, we could certainly have that discussion if that money should go back. But sometimes you got to get over the hurdle of, does it have to go back there? And then it's not even a discussion.
Yeah, I would need to check with the GASP rules and our auditors.
Yeah, and totally fine.
I know with the enterprise funds, that tends to be the case.
Yeah.
I'm less clear on the
It'd be
general
like
fund.
legal, then policy, then discretion, and kind of in that order, something like that.
So I would
Okay.
say tonight, if you're looking to put it anywhere that's not a general fund, we may want to hold off on designating
Well-
a location.
There might be some research that needs to be done
So
before
it
we
can
take
go
that
towards
up.
the facility fund for general fund buildings, right? I mean, that's fine.
So if I'm gonna, yeah. So then, and I really don't like it when I riff up here, but I'm going to do this anyway and just ask you, like, is there a mechanism where you could motion to put it something in like a restricted, some sort of container in order to be able to have that discussion in the future? And then we would be able to, never mind, to retract that. The question that I had, actually, someone could take that up if that's interesting. But what I'm interested in going back to this, though, is I'm kind of it's a chicken or the egg thing for me here, and we may have discussed this, and if we did, I apologize if you're having to refresh my memory. But we've got an appraisal from 2021, and what I'm interested in is normally what you would do is you would work with a real estate agent, and they would go and do comps, and you would do so forth. But it would be difficult to ask staff to go find comps just to not do something with it. But then I don't know what the best and highest use for it is if I don't know exactly what the potential market value might be. So the question might be, how do we, like, if the comparables are only X, then I might say, well, Scott, isn't this best used for, let's say public works lot or something like that? So what would be the best way to do this so that we can be as most informed as possible before we just say go surplus it? Because as of now, I think I would, but I don't have all available information, but I don't want you to do work for naught. So how would you do that?
So that's the distance between the surplus and the public hearing. So what we would do is refresh some of that information between now and the public hearing. So we have current information. So that would be a little comp research, maybe even a quick update to the appraisal itself on a 2026 basis. And that information would be accurate and kind of almost required of the public hearing from a timing standpoint. So,
but if it was completely out of whack and set for whatever reason, can we back ourselves? Could council choose to say stop? I want it on the agenda to be able to say no.
yeah, I think you can say at the public hearing, we choose not to follow through with the recommendation at this point, and we intend to hold this property and not actually sell it.
Fair enough. Question answered. Thanks, Scott.
And it sounds like, just to confirm that in terms of designating where it would go, of course, this is a multi-step process. We have several more meetings that we're going to have to go through. So that could also be done at a future meeting as well, right? There's no reason that it has to be done tonight, could be done tonight, but doesn't have to be.
And just this property was given to the city of Ashland by Jackson County. So though it was a $0 transaction, it was just granted to the city of Ashland in the 90s.
So does that mean that that our finance policies around, there's a mention in those about having percentages that go to different places? And so it seems to me like we need to have all of that information in front of us maybe before we have a discussion about where it goes. So it would seem that this evening we should stick to the conversation of do we want to move forward with surplusing the property. Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, I just, because it was kind of quiet over there, I just want to, like, hard confirmation, we can do it at a later meeting, and when that would be, so that we're prepared for that, and we can do the research.
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind is, we move forward, we sell this property until we have a budget supplemental to accept that revenue and where that revenue is going. It's just kind of there
Right. It exists in the ether.
in the bank account, but yeah.
Yeah. The ether.
Okay, great. Any other questions of staff? Councilor Kaplan.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious why we care about an appraisal on this. It sounds like we don't want it. We want to dispose of it. You're talking about market-based sale using listing agent. Why don't we do we need to update an appraisal in order to sell it to the highest bidder? In this case, it seems like that's the most appropriate use for it. So why do we need to spend money or effort doing a new appraisal?
That helps define the terms and conditions of the sale moving forward. So the council could choose to set a minimum, and the minimum could be set based on an appraised value. So if we go to market and, do even a sealed bid auction, which we've done, and those don't meet the minimum based on appraised value, they can be rejected. Or you go for a market listing and it's truly worth what someone will pay for it, is part of that process. So those are kind of the two processes, the city's used in the past, either a sealed bid or just marketed it. And generally, that's at the discretion of the council from a policy standpoint, which one you would prefer to use. Staff in general would just recommend using a listing agent to market the property effectively to its highest and best use for development.
Councilor Bloom.
Just kind of question about that kind of gets to Councilor Kaplan's point is if you're hiring a listing agent, wouldn't that be part of what they do is do the comps? So we're not really paying extra to get that done, is my understanding. And then the second part of that, when we talk about a listing agent, are we talking about the real estate agent that we've paid to be on retainer? Or are we talking about now paying somebody else to do this?
We would use the existing contractual basis that we have with the agent that we hired through our solicitation.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And just to clarify it too, so that part of the process, if council's goal is just, hey, let's just sell this thing, let's get the best possible value we can for it, we as a part of the noticing requirement for the public hearing have to provide evidence of value. But if the direction is, we know what we want to do, we want to sell it, we're going to use our thing, that's we can just produce what is necessary, staff can produce what is necessary for the notice, and then we just take it to the agent and they sell it. So it simplifies the process, not,
Right.
Councilor Dale?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll be quick here. I guess that still doesn't sit well with me, but I'd have to think through that one just because I think we have to be as informed as possible. Looking at the financial policies, though, and the mayor and Sabrina, you had said something too. So this is where this would be considered the reception of an unbudgeted revenue, correct? Okay. Yep. Net of any corresponding expenditures, what we paid and whatever. Okay. And so this asset is in a governmental fund or it's in an enterprise fund, this particular piece of property?
General fund.
General fund. Okay. So then that's where we're restricted to give 20% to the reserve and long-term and so forth, the capital, and then after that adds up to, so half of it would go to all of the things and then we could, in that remaining half, we could figure out what we wanted to do with relative to budget supplemental. Okay, and that's with any unbudgeted revenue net of expenses, either in the governmental fund or in an enterprise fund.
Yeah, so like, for example, with Clay Street or,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, I move to surplus tax lot number 100 from assessor map 391E04AD.
Councillor Bloom.
No, we have no purpose for it. Let's just, yes, please.
Councillor Sherrill. Any further discussion? No. Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Great, and now we are to the Hardesty property surplus.
Rolling, rolling, rolling. So, same discussion. This one's slightly different and has a little bit of variability to it. City purchased the total Hardesty property, which is 2 distinct tax lots in 2018. It was purchased by streets, water, wastewater, and fire actually invested some money in for a future training facility location on the property. It was purchased to relocate the B Street yard down there and also house some of the street department and store some appurtenances, some pipes and other things of that nature on the site to give the city the ability to divest of the B Street property itself and also free up some space on the current incorporation yard at 90 North Mountain. It was also originally intended to potentially have wetlands developed on the north boundary of tax lot 402 and 400 as part of a wetland cooling treatment process for the wastewater plant. Since that time, as we've talked about, we no longer need wetland cooling treatments. We've gone a couple different paths. And so the area north of Bear Creek on both tax lots is really not needed. The area south on tax lot 400 is where we have our yard set up and structure laid out for future development of that Hardesty site. So at this point, staff is recommending, surplusing at least tax lot 402, which is the tax lot that has the house and the garages on it. Again, we've had an appraised value. 2021 hit pretty good with appraisals around here as part of our process. $685K, 2,000 square foot, 2-story house with the outbuildings and garages and fenced in, pasture area. Since we kind of generally no longer need that area north of Bear Creek, there is the potential to go through a county process to adjust the boundary line to encapsulate approximately an additional 10 acres into the 5-acre parcel of tax lot 402 and then divest of that. Or we could move forward just solely divesting of tax lot 402 and the 5.1 acres of property. That's at the council discretion. As I said, from a public works operation enterprise system standpoint, that area north to the creek isn't really needed. It also has a water right that could be applied to it for any sort of agricultural use as part of utilization of that area. And again, the request by staff of council is to approve the surplus of all of 402 and in addition to some of 400, depending on council discretion. And that would give us the ability to navigate forward to a public hearing in the process. The public hearing for just 402 would come around a lot quicker because we wouldn't have to go through a county process and do a little bit of additional surveying and legwork. It's going to take us a few months to go through that process to get that approved by the county to do a boundary line adjustment. So with that, I will open
Councilor
up for
Bloom?
questions.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, it's probably a Johan question. With the motion, so doing the motion with the recommended boundary line adjustment, so you're basically saying property tax lot 402 with the recommended boundary line adjustment, but what about 400? Because that adjustment is in 400. So are we does that need to be phrased in a way that says to basically surplus 402 pending a property line? I just want to make sure that we're not going to mess it up.
It does require an approval of Jackson County, which is not granted.
Yeah, so what we could do though is can you pull the map back up just so I'm saying the right thing? Is we could do approve 402 and then approve surplus of the adjusted boundary area. So like do a separate motion, or you know what I mean? So if it doesn't get approved for some reason, although I can't imagine, Scott would know better than I, it just might take a while.
It just might take a while because we're essentially swapping 10 acres to a 5-acre parcel and keeping 5 acres of the existing parcel. So it's kind of just a rotation of land. I don't see it being a huge issue. What I would say too is that what we would recommend is essentially the boundary line would be the center line of the creek is part of that adjustment.
So the motion should probably read 402 and the 400 with the property line, the portion of 400. Sorry.
I don't know why this started doing that. It seems like a recent thing, but yeah, I think that would be just the cleanest way, just in case something goes wrong, we can say, we can move forward on 402 and then we'll figure out,
And just keeping in line with that, we could also move forward with the lot line adjustment and then the surplus question later, after we find out from the county what they say. We don't have to surplus it in order to ask for the lot line adjustment, or does that help our case at the county?
I don't think that would be referenced as part of a boundary line adjustment. I think if this council so chooses, you could just motion to proceed with a boundary line adjustment and then come back with a surplus request.
Once we know what the property actually, whether we get that or not. Yeah. Okay, Councilor Dan.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't mean to harp on this, but I'm thinking about it just the opposite. I have no idea if a boundary line adjustment makes this more or less valuable. I would like to talk to a local real estate agent that would say, if you did this, this is what's in the market. People are looking for this. This is what we're looking for. I'm all for surplusing it. So I guess my question would be just the opposite. If this council chooses to move forward with surplus, would we then go investigate, find out in what way, in what manner we would like to do that? I mean, do we still lose any? I'm not in a position to say if a boundary line adjustment is a good thing. Looks fine, but I don't know if we just screwed everything up, and it's kind of hard to undo that.
Well, I think what we would do is we would do the boundary line adjustment, and then as a part of the surplus process, we would get the value of it. We would, at that point, get an appraisal of that new parcel.
But that's the problem, right? You don't know if what you did was just lower the value by putting in a property line, boundary line. Some people might want what I'm saying is, I don't know what's better. I mean,
You're saying that it might lose value by adding 5 acres? Is that?
Possibly. There could be different things. We're looking at it. Now you're cutting it out. I just don't know, is what I'm saying. Yeah, there's water issues, there's different things. You might sit there and say, okay, we just added 10 acres and now no one wants that property because something's wrong with it or there's something else and we just lost out on. What I'm saying is I'd like the information before we do it and not tie our hands before saying, yeah, go surplus it. I feel uncomfortable doing a boundary line adjustment, just like maybe guessing on what we think up here.
Councilor Hanson?
Thank you. So Scott, the residential property of 400 has a water right to it, or 402 has a water right to it.
The 400 has the water right based on my review of the certification. All of the flow right is to tax lot 400.
Okay. So the residential piece that has property on the other side of the creek as well does not have a water right to it.
That's how the certificate reads.
And currently, it is our responsibility to take care of mowing and maintaining the other side of the creek for 402.
All 20 acres.
Right.
For both, correct.
Right. I mean, I can't imagine why the 402 would not increase in value, being that it has a contiguous lot line between those two parcels and the addition of this other piece has a water right to it. I'm not a real estate professional, but I've owned creekfront property before, and I just can't see how that would be a downside. Just one crystal ball opinion there, but I know that if we do maintain this property and we keep it with 400, we're going to be responsible, and we're going to incur more city expense to keep it mowed, to keep it, at least do fire mitigation there. And we were talking out in the foyer, and I asked you, so I'll ask you again, do we have any intentions or plans of doing anything productive with that other piece of property on the other side of the creek for 400?
Not from an enterprise operation.
Yeah, no.
It's just a maintenance obligation currently.
It's a burden.
There's no future development from the enterprise side of things planned for that now that we've found other mitigation
Okay.
efforts for our issues.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Councillor Kaplan.
So it seems like the thing that we know I think we know several things, but one thing that I think we know is that we don't want, in parcel 400, it's definitely surplus we think it's surplus what's north of the creek. Could we just go forward with a parcel, partition the parcel with Jackson County, and then we could deal later with whether that gets combined with the entire portion of 402. If Councillor Dale thinks that there may be some value to somebody, having the house separately from the agricultural area on the other side, we can deal with that later, or get advice from a real estate professional on how to market that and position it. Would that make sense?
I think that that's an option, not knowing specifically, but that's about 10 acres, which I think is a kind of that EFU kind of subdividing limit. So I think that that's a potential option. So we'd have to, have a conversation with Jackson County Development Services about that. Because it does have direct access off of Eagle Mill.
Right.
So it's not a landlocked parcel, it has direct access. You would have to kind of dedicate an easement over a portion of 402 because of where the access is to get to that lot.
Mm-hmm.
But you would do that as part of that subdivision process.
Right.
Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, so, I feel like that then gets complicated. You're adding an easement in there, that makes things more challenging. I'm wondering, because I'm playing, I don't want to mess this up if I make the motion, but basically moving to surplus the Hardesty property tax lot 402, pending approval of the boundary line adjustment on tax lot 400. That way, you basically have approval to go ahead and surplus it if you get the boundary line adjustment. If you don't get the boundary line adjustment, it's not surplus, it comes back to council, and then we can figure that out next.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I would look to Councillor Dale, who had the question about whether we're reducing value, from what a purchaser might want, or multiple purchasers might want.
Right, if you do the boundary line first, I'm still confused.
Well, so in terms of that, when we talk, I think we may be talking about different boundary line adjustments, right? So my understanding is that we're looking at taking 401 or 400 and splitting it along the creek. That's the line adjustment. We're not necessarily combining it with 402. But I want you to confirm that for me. We could go either way, correct?
One is a subdivision and one is a boundary line adjustment.
Right.
So if you make another parcel and we call it 403, that would be the area north of the creek, and everyone would be separated.
And then at that point, we could decide whether to offer them both at the same time, which would give people the opportunity to either bid on one or the other or both.
That I'm okay with. That makes sense. Yeah. No, I understand. And
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor and Councilor, I may have been confused in thinking that was part of doing the boundary line to turn that into one larger property. If you're saying that you're going to keep two separate, you were basically creating a third tax lot
That's the subdivision,
That would be the
yes.
subdivision. That is fine. If you're looking at me, Scott, or us and saying, look, we're keeping this public works yard. We need that. That's non-negotiable. That's what we want. We're going to use that. And you're going to subdivide that so that you can have that and you've got your access road. And now there's two properties that we're going to two distinct tax lots, the two that are in, we'll call it yellow, right? They're south and east there, north and east. Then that's fine. Then you're right. A bidder could come in and say, I want one, I want either, I want both. We could have that discussion. That's the discussion that we might want to have, which is then do you combine them? What's more valuable? Do we screw up if we sell one and then the other one's worthless? So we have to have that discussion as well. But if you're saying just that subdivision there so that we keep public works, I would be perfectly acceptable with that. But we got to have the discussion about the other ones. Yeah.
Councilor Heston.
Yeah, so all of this, I believe we've hashed out, and it seems as though, honestly, sticking with the original staff recommendation gives us the most flexibility. If we approve the surplus of tax lot 402 with the recommended boundary line adjustment, then we can figure out what exactly that looks like after we do our due diligence with the county and talk to the real estate agent. Just leave it general, and we'll figure it out, whether it's an island, 403 by itself, or whether it's tacked on to 402. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think part of this would be asking the county the question between a subdivision and a boundary line adjustment. So if we surplus 402 in total and make a recommendation that staff brings back kind of the information or approval, whatever that looks like, for either creating tax lot 403 or encapsulating that northern boundary into 402, is a process we could do that. Because I'm not 100% positive that the county is going to let you create a separate parcel until I have that conversation with the county. I'm pretty confident that we can adjust the boundary line of it, but I don't know about the third parcel.
So Scott, my question is maybe we should just leave it as it is, but the staff recommendation to give you the most flexibility possible.
And if I could add a clarification to the process of this. So if council surpluses the entire portion that Scott's recommending, and then we go through this and something changes, like the county says, no, you can't subdivide it, or the appraiser, because we have to, in order to do the next step, which is selling it, then we come to council and we say, hey, we can't subdivide, our real estate agent says this. The method of the sale is not determined by surplusing it. And the value is not determined by surplusing it. Surplusing is saying, we don't want this for city purposes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows Scott to kind of figure out what is the best way for, get return on my investment for this land bank, essentially.
Right.
It's kind of, I feel like we're mixing the process a little.
Yeah. And so in terms of the council confirming that it is surplus, that then gives staff the kind of the permission to go put time into figuring out what might be the best process. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
The cart and the horse.
So I'm kind of going back to this then, what I kind of threw out as a motion, but instead of saying property line adjustment pending approval of the subdivision on tax lot 400, because again, if that subdivision gets declined, then the surplus comes back to us and then we can figure out, okay, what makes more sense then for us to do? It gives us that flexibility, that option.
Scott?
I would say, correct me if I'm missing, but I would say I surplus tax lot 402 in total and the area from the center line north of Bear Creek on tax lot 400. And then we can do our county work and come back for the public hearing or kind of a study session, intermediate type of thing where we're at, what we found out, appraisal comp and everything like that, and let the council go, this is our best direction, subdivision, boundary line, 2 sales, 1 sale, at that point.
And we could do that in executive session, or we could email council and just say, here's what we found.
Yeah.
Hit us up with questions.
Well, and I think there's a separate question around the sale process, and there's probably more discussion about highest and best use and value and all of that. Councilor Sherrill.
Thank you, Mayor. Just maybe a point of clarification. It seems obvious to me, at least, that we would move to surplus lot 400 and lot 402. Regardless of where the lot line adjustment is, we're not creating a third lot.
this piece would become a part of the parcel that the city already owns, and regardless of size, tax lot 400 is still going to be tax lot 400.
But then what about Hardesty, the part that we want to keep?
Well, that's irrelevant in how I would look at, we're going to be surplusing both of those lots. What we could easily put in there, we have the right to move a lot to the benefit of the city, a lot line, via a lot line adjustment or a boundary line adjustment, but it's still going to be the same two tax lots.
Well, and I think that that's why we're kind of coming back to that question of whether a motion would be appropriate to surplus 402 and the area identified in this map, which then allows staff to go forward with finding out from the county what our options might be. Councilor Bloom.
Maybe, I'm sorry, Councilor Dale, I feel like I'm stealing your words here again, but maybe Councilor Dale has a point, and this is why we get a real estate agent to advise us on what is the proper process for a real estate transaction of this complexity. Because is anybody a real estate agent in here? I don't know.
Well, the question, I guess, is do we need to do that now? Right, because we're not selling this now, and we're not combining these now. We're simply saying, go forward and figure out the boundary line adjustment. See if that's possible. We are intending to release those two areas on your map, right? And then we can bring in that conversation of, if we find out that that's possible, then we can solicit whatever professional assistance we need to figure out what the best way forward would be for moving both of those pieces. Does that seem fair, Johan and Scott?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me Scott's going to want to get the best return on the investment here too. So it's like, this is the portion, the surplusing in my mind, it's like the city doesn't want this anymore. And then how we go about getting appraisals, whether or not we can partition versus subdivide, lot line adjustment versus subdivide, then we can figure that out and bring that,
Yeah, Councilor Kaplan.
So being very clear about what it is that we want to surplus, it sounds like we can be very specific and short about that, which is the entire tax lot 402 and the portion of tax lot 400 that is north of the center line of the creek, which is denoted by that red line going north. If we motion to surplus that, then you figure out what tax lot gets created out of all of that.
Councilor Hanson.
Oh, I gotta do this.
Yeah, again, that's just what staff put in the report.
Okay, so if there are no additional questions,
I'd like to make a motion.
I will open the floor for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Councilor Hanson.
I move to approve the surplus of the Hardesty property tax lot 402 with the recommended boundary line adjustment.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion. I think that's not what we were talking about. But yeah, I'll second for discussion just so we can hash it out.
That's exactly what we're talking about. The potential property boundary adjustment that staff puts into the report is at the creek. We're surplusing tax lot 402. And then get back to the exact wording here. Surplus of tax lot 402 with the recommended boundary line adjustment. And so staff will go back to the county and north of the creek, we'll try to make property line adjustment, and then we'll assess at that point whether it's best to attach it to 402 or to island it as a separate 403 or whatever. Gives staff the flexibility to do what's outlined here. I appreciate all of this discussion, but we're overthinking it at this point. Let's let staff go do its thing. And I believe that's enough to let the process go, and then the fine tuning and the real estate agents and the county are gonna fill in all those gaps.
Councilor Kaplan? Did you want to speak to the motion?
Got a green light. I'm just putting it on the table for the purpose of the discussion. I think that is not exactly what Councilor Dale and Councilor Councilor Dale in particular was looking for, because it implies that adding already the portion of parcel 400 that is north of the creek to the other one. And I think the question was whether that's the best deal or not. So I'd like you to, Councilor Dale, I'd like you to explain.
Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Councilor Kaplan. So Councilor Hanson, I think the most simple thing we can do is make a motion that I would be willing to make to surplus tax lot 402 and 400. That's the motion. They can go do whatever they want. You need to withdraw it in 60 seconds if you're interested in that. And then they can go work out all their boundary lines and do everything else. We've just given them the go-ahead.
I don't understand how that's different.
It is.
Because it's the definition, property line versus subdivision versus nothing. Like, there's legal definitions of that.
I want to vote on it.
Okay, so that's what the motion is on the floor. And we have the language. Scott, if you could bring that language back up so that we're all looking at it. Discussion. Councilor Sherrill.
Yeah, thank you. Can we get a readback of the exact motion? Do we have that?
It's right there. It's on the screen.
Okay, so the exact motion is to surplus the Hardesty property tax lot 402 with the recommended boundary line adjustment. But the recommended boundary line adjustment is on a different tax lot of record, which would be tax lot 400. So I don't.
That's in the staff report.
Well, hold on. No crosstalk.
But if
Go ahead, Councilor Sherrill.
I guess my question is if, like, this isn't gonna, like, the directions don't line up with the legal descriptions of the property, and I don't think that it was properly written in here per the intent of the maps. And maybe Scott could speak to that.
I'll allow that. Scott, if you have an answer for that?
We can't property line adjust a tax lot that's not in the description that we're talking about.
Yeah, it should probably say, with the recommended boundary line adjustment of 400
Yeah.
into 402.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, and I think we would be able to clean it up by just saying that we want to surplus both tax lots.
Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment to this motion that we remove the language relative to the boundary line adjustment and add property tax lot 400.
Second.
Councilor Dale.
I think, and I understand Councilor Hanson where you're going. I'm just trying to create flexibility and not have to come back at a second meeting to do this, to get this done. Because again, like we talked about, I just want to make sure that we're not tying our hands with the boundary line adjustment. This gives staff the ability to have maximum flexibility to go look. Do I think we should have done some things? We can do some, absolutely. But this allows staff the maximum flexibility to go do this without having to figure out the boundary line. And it's with all respect, Scott, a little bit poorly written in there because we just want to be crystal clear. And so not on you, but that's the cleanest way we do that. So with that amendment to Councilor Hanson's original motion would get there as we are extending, because we do have a motion on the floor. So we do get to go to 940.
Yeah, and 100%. And you know, I fully appreciate and respect that you want to just do whatever staff writes in there, but this is why I asked the question, and staff came back and said include.
Hold up.
So.
We are not going to do crosstalk. You will take the floor when it is given to you, and that is it. Councilor Bloom, did you have anything else?
No, but I appreciate Johan clarifying that earlier, that 400 should be included.
I have a question, a process question, Scott, that has come up from the amendment. If we say to surplus tax lot 400, right now, tax lot 400 includes the area that you intend to build the space on. It includes the bottom of the Public Works B Street yard. Does that create an issue? Because, and that's my first question. Because the way I understand it is we would be saying we're surplusing that entire lower half as well as the top, the northern side that we're looking to surplus.
That was what the recommended boundary line adjustment is. So that the way that the amendment reads, it's not the entirety of 400, it's with that
That's not what I heard. If you can go back to that, to the motion, what I heard Councilor Dale say, and Councilor Dale, tell me if I'm correct, that we would take out with the recommended boundary line adjustment and simply say Hardesty property tax lot 402 and 400.
So to clarify, Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I'll direct this to the city attorney and to Scott. My intention with my amendment is absolutely not to give up that property of the public works yard. What it's doing is allowing staff to go forward with the approval of council to start the surplusing process, and then they will do the work to make sure that that boundary line is there, whatever they so choose. Just because we make this a motion does not, like we talked about with the other property, say they're locked in. In fact, what it does is give them maximum flexibility to put that line where they want after we've done some homework by having a real estate agent and so forth. Johan, is that how you understand this?
That's how I understood the amendment, but now
Yeah.
I'm questioning if that's not the language.
Right, but-
That's how I understood it.
But if okay.
Okay, so we're considering this amendment. Scott, with the amendment, the way it is structured, do you have the permission from this council that you need to pursue the boundary line adjustment without us speaking to it specifically?
I think I do have the direction from council, and from a public hearing standpoint, if we were to move forward, I can't recommend that the other portion of 400 is no longer needed for a city use. So that wouldn't be on the table as part of that discussion. It would only be the area not needed from a surplus standpoint. And that gives me the ability to have those discussions with Jackson County about a boundary line or a subdivision, and a agent about what would be the highest and best process for divestment of that, either a separate lot or a combined lot.
Okay. So is there any other discussion about the amendment? Councilor Dale, would you restate your amendment?
Sure. I would like to amend the original motion to remove the language of relative to the boundary line adjustment and add property tax lot 400.
Okay. With that restatement, is there any further discussion of the amendment? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne.
Yes.
Great,
Amendment
thank you. So now we are back to the main motion as amended, and so further discussion on the main motion. Okay, roll call, please, Alyssa.
Duquesne, Duquesne,
Councillor Duquesne, are you still with us?
I'll give her a minute. Hanson,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Councillor Duquesne,
Alyssa, I'm here. I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry.
no
Great,
problem.
we thought we had
Motion
lost you
passed.
there for a minute. Okay, great. So we are past the 9:30 timeframe, so we are not allowed to continue on with any additional items. We will catch up to our council liaison reports next time. Sabrina, we will make sure that we get to your city manager report as well. The floor is open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.